This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, welcome to Targeted Massachusetts Peace Conference. My name is Frank Allen, and I will be your host this evening. The views and opinions expressed on our show are not necessarily the views or opinions of myself, Targeted Massachusetts, or Stars International, and I thank you. Where'd Alex in there somewhere?
Hello, I'm here. Thank you.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm okay for now. How are you?
Oh, very good, thank you. There's,
Yeah.
I will always be here.
I hope so.
If there will be, if I'm sick for some reason, there will be someone standing in.
Okay. I didn't come to any shows for a long time. For a period, maybe 3 months. I was very upset that nobody really find anything about the solution how to prevent the beams that coming at me and anybody else. Probably most likely that many people got this, and I still didn't get the solution. I still have to sleep in the subway. And last night the police, the subway and the cars, know.
Better for you there.
Yeah, and the police last night they came to me, they wake me up, they say, "Why are you here?" So I say, "If I tell you the story, you wouldn't believe me." And one of them said, "No, I would believe you." They usually, And I say, "Okay, did you hear about energy weapons?" They say, "No." So I'm telling them, instead of shooting bullets, they shoot electromagnetic beams at you, silent and visible. And the other one interrupts me, said, "Are you taking any medications?" I say, "No." And usually they give you a ticket, because I was sleeping on the bench, and it's illegal. I mean, you can't sleep in the subway. You can only sit down. And they didn't give me a ticket this time. And they didn't want to listen to the story to the end. That's what happened last night. So now today, I'm going to go soon because they bombarding me from the above and from the below. Perps. They never stop.
I'm terribly sorry to hear that. But
yeah. I asked some Derek a couple of weeks ago if he heard any solution for this, and he didn't come back to me. Do you have anything about this? When I close my eyes, trying to sleep, like a jackhammer is in my body, silent jackhammer. I have to leave because it's so powerful. So when I go to the subway, it's not that strong. It's still there, but not that strong. Do you know anything about the solution for this?
As far as the solution goes, we're working on the origin of the people that are accessing the satellites. That's what we are doing now.
Yeah. Of course, it's probably computerized, most likely. And
and that's how they gain access. But we've been working for quite some time now, and we have a lot of people researching everywhere, all over the world. And if I find the solution, it will be free to everyone.
Well, thank you, Frank, from the Hope. But I want to ask you something. If it's computerized, which is, of course, is, and they're doing this through the satellites, and why do they need the foot soldiers, the robots, these dumb perps, to be near you, like neighbors? And why
They
do you
want
need
your
they
reaction. They just want
what?
your reaction.
And,
It's the suppression. It's a suppression. Not only you, but the people around you who see this. And I wanted to tell you about the vibration. I believe it's a specific type of antenna. It's shaped like a donut. I I saw a picture of it on YouTube one time, and what it does is uh, it will throw out a pulse, and then the pulse is surrounded by these rings, and each time a ring hits you of energy, it's a vibration. And this is done what, microseconds.
right, but vibration. But let's say I'm outside, it hits me over there too. Outside,
Right.
any place. I went to Florida, hits me there. But people who were around me, they didn't get it. So that means that I have something in the body which receive these beams.
Not necessarily.
So why
Sometimes,
why they didn't get it?
well,
They do.
because they're aimed at you.
What?
Because it's aimed at you. I've been hit by V2K, and I've had people around me hear it. I've been hit by these vibrations, and my neighbors in my apartment complex have felt it. So
Well, these people who
it
I'm
depends
around,
on the size of the beam and the size of the pulse, I guess.
see, I play chess in the park, and when they beam me over there when I play chess, and I think some perps are not far from me. But I asked other guys who play chess with me, they didn't get any.
Okay, Barb, can you give me a source on that?
Source on what?
The antenna? Because that sounds like a torrid wrapped coil or toroidal.
Um, I saw it on YouTube. I saw it on a video on YouTube.
Okay.
I saved it. I saved the picture of it, but it's so far back that it would take me days. I'll go look for it, but I'm not promising anything because I saw it years ago
Oh, I see. Okay.
when I was setting up a group with Lorraine Thompson and Anthony. What was his last name? Anthony Poland, and that's not his real name. But he's the one who told me that if you want to see any of these tactics or programs or devices, y- the government publishes these papers on everything that they're doing for those in DC to read. The problem is, it could, for you to get the file, it'd cost you $10,000. That's how they keep everybody from, not in the know to know about it.
Ten
I
thousand
say
dollars for what?
for a file to tell you what's going on, to tell you about the devices, to tell you about the program, to tell you how they're doing it.
Well, I would say, let's say somebody pays $10,000 and finds out about this and give it to somebody else. You know, because
Well,
people who are
Tony paid $2,000 for a file, and that's when he first came out with, I think, two things. One was we are classified under the umbrella of national security as terrorists. That's why they can use these weapons against us. And number two, the other one was when they pulse you, these pulses can curve. These pulses can almost go around corners, like a 45-degree angle, almost. And he showed, he sent me a video that showed that what they do is they take two uh, uh, antenna and they pulse out at the same time two different beams,
Mhm.
and where these beams cross over in the middle is where the pulse in the middle will follow it, and that's how they can get them to curve.
Well, I would say the story you're telling is like this: if somebody pays $10,000 and they release the information which is top secret, illegal, then they just extorting the money. They would not release the true information because that's illegal and they would
They're
be
not top
responsible.
secret. They're not top secret. These are files published by the government, and those in the government can read them. But if anybody else wants to read them, they've charged a fee to so you're like, I can't afford to pay $2,000 for a file from the
Yeah, but
government.
that would be proof in court that they doing it, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I
But
don't know.
you,
Tony dropped off the radar um, when things didn't work out between the three of us, and I don't know where he is or what he's doing at this time. But I know he lived next to a school, and he had two little toddlers for his children, and he noticed that whenever the school was started, when kids were dropped off and they had cell phones, he got hit and his kid got hit. And then he also noticed that when the kids were picked up at 3 o'clock, and again cell phone activity increased, he got hit and his kids got hit. How? He feels that it was because of the cell phone activity at the school. Now he's a very bright man, and he's evidently had some funds, but I don't know where he is or what he's doing. He's, like I said, we lost contact. That's all I know. I mean, I I, I can tell you what he told me, and I can try to look at YouTube to get those videos to show you. But as far as going into this in depth, I cannot. This is just what Tony told me.
Right. Well, thank you.
It's all I got to offer
Yeah.
you. These devices have long been known to be person specific. They can pick you out of a crowd, like the audio spotlight. See, a lot of people think the audio spotlight is just to hit you with sound, but I think the audio spotlight can also be pulsed and used as a weapon. I think a lot of these devices that you see commercially are multitask. For instance, there's a device that an orthodontist uses that can go through the skin without leaving, well, it leaves a light like a little red mark, but it shoots out this high intensity spark. And what they use it for is to break down the bone for people who have bone spurs on the back of their heel. Causes people to have a lot of trouble walking. I was told long time ago that they've modified this to be able to use this as a weapon. And I believe it because I've been hit with this spark many, many,
Well,
many times.
Barbara, look, these people, in your opinion, who are they? Why these people are paid by the government to break the law and attack innocent people? Who are
Right.
these
I
people?
think the boots on the ground are pretty much mercenaries, like a mercenary. Uh,
But
and
people on the top in the government agencies, some of them, a lot of them,
right,
they
well, they're told we're under the national security umbrella, and we're considered terrorists in the same category as terrorists. This is what Anthony Poland read. This is why this is why court was not available to us. This is why we were forced into hospital for evaluation of violence. This is why that they could do whatever they wanted to do with us with this program, because we are under the same umbrella as terrorists.
so I consider these people enemies of the state because they just doing everything illegal. And for what purpose? What did they achieve? What they hope to achieve with torturing me or somebody like me? They know I'm innocent. I'm sure they know by now because they investigated me so many times for so many years. Is these sick people or just just enemies of this United States? Who are they?
Other
And
enemies of
the scientist in that file told the government they had 4 or 5 people come before government and do a forum and speak about these weapons and what's going on, and they were told not to do anything about it. The government was told by these scientists not to do anything about it.
Well, the
Just
government. The government has many representatives. Who specifically in the government told them? The government. I'm sure that many decent people who work for the United States government have no idea what's going on.
the only one they gave a list of all the senators and congressmen at that time who was at that forum, and the only one that I saw on there that I really recognized was Jeff Sessions, who Trump just fired for being the attorney general. He knew all about this.
Ah,
Kennedy,
unbelievable.
Ted Kennedy was on the program too. I can dig that one out easy. There was a whole list of senators and congressmen, and many of them I didn't recognize the name, but there were quite a few that I did recognize.
Ah. I'm just shocked by this. What's going on? Never in my
Ellen,
dreams.
does Frank have your phone number, your email?
Yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
do.
Okay, I'm gonna try to locate that
What?
antenna. Do you want me to
What?
send you that if I can
Oh yeah,
find
yeah.
it?
Thank you. Yes, yes.
Oh,
All right,
yeah,
I'll send
thank
it to
you.
you, Frank.
Before we forget.
Okay, that's like a toroidal antenna. That's really weird.
It looks like a donut
Yeah, that's what a toroidal coil looks like,
with a hole in the center.
with a hole in the center.
Yeah. And he said that was the antenna that sent out a pulse with the. And he also mentioned these antennas that look like bow ties that are on top of buildings. They also had a specific use, as far as.
Okay, the nuclear warning devices, they look round and white and they're stacked in six. Okay, we have an echo.
Oh, thank you, Barbara.
Listen, hon, I get here with the same thing. And the only thing that I've found to protect myself from it is I found this great big thick, very, very dense rubber mat. And I also found that what they're doing is they're taking old tires and they're grinding them up and then they're putting them in a flat mold and they're melting them again. And they're using these to line playgrounds with. So when the kids fall, they won't fall on the rocks
Right.
and stuff. I've seen them several times in the playgrounds, but these plastic, rubber mats that I've got, they can go through them, but it takes a great deal of energy to go through them. And they don't like to go through them. They'd prefer to go around them. And I only bought 3, and they were pretty cheap. Well, they were like $13 a piece. And
What size?
I would say it's about 3 feet by a foot and a half wide.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
they would use for is they had a ridge around them, and what they would use for is to put your boots on when you come out of the outside for the snow. But they're heavy as hell.
yeah, you can
And
get the rubber floor mats at auto parts. I bought 3 of the ones that go in the floor of your second seat. They're very thick. If you get really good ones, they're very thick. I bought like 3 of them, and they weren't
yeah,
to get them were not expensive. And you're right, Barbara, they really help. But right over them, I have to put because they attack my knees. Right over them, I have to put some Faraday bags that I just fold over and quadruple the size of the
but I
Faraday bag
suggest
on top of
to,
the rubber.
to
Go ahead.
get other things to layer, like metal sheets. You can get
Yeah,
small pieces of metal from Home Depot and just layer it. Keep on
yes,
layering it with
yes,
anything that you can find.
yes. I did that too because I also added those Teflon coated baking sheets that the large ones. You can buy super large ones. So yes, to layer with different materials really helps.
Yeah, I found the rubber works pretty good though.
Yeah,
Like I said, they don't like to go through it, and
yeah,
they'll go around it, but they don't like to go through it.
yep.
I just go to the dollar store and use the protectors that you put on your car on the dash. That really works for me.
Whatever works.
Yeah, Bob, I've never heard of a radio wave that will go around a corner.
Yeah, that's how they make them. The first time I saw this absolutely astounded me. I was laying on the couch, and this pulse came from, at the time we had the TV and, those big components where you put your TV and your stereo and your VCR in and all that stuff. And this pulse came from underneath it, from the floor, and it curved up and it hit me right in the face. And I was like, what the hell was that? And since then, when I lived in the other apartment, the cars used to drive by me all the time, and I taped them. They would be halfway down the street, and they would get, maybe 30 feet from my window, and they would let fly a pulse, and the pulse would come right up, and it would go right through my window and hit me. And that's how they curve these pulses, is they send out 2 beams, and where the beams cross in the middle, the pulse will follow that where it crossed. Like I said, there's YouTube video on that Anthony sent me. That's how I know.
Okay, because heterodyning, which is what you're describing, is designed for those 2 beams to meet, and the target will then hear V2K where those 2 beams meet, and that is usually on the person's head. That's the way that particular system works. But we
Yeah,
have,
but I get hit, Frank, with the local dues like Barbara is referring to, but I don't have V2K. So I get hit physically, and they're targeting specific areas of the body, but I don't have any V2K or no tinnitus or any of that.
I don't know what to tell you, Frank, but I've seen these things curve like you wouldn't believe.
no, I'm surprised that you see them at all. That's what
Oh,
I'm,
yeah, I can see them. I don't see them every time. There's another one that'll go through your head, and it's like a almost say somebody took a squirt gun, right? And a powerful squirt gun and held it about 6 inches from your head and squirted your head. Well, that's how this feels. It feels like only it's electromagnetic or extra low frequency of some kind. But this will go right through your head and it feels like almost a squish. And they hit me with this all the time. And that one is very, very difficult to see. I have seen it several times, but uh, to tell where that's coming from or to see it all the time is very difficult. But I've taken the pictures of these pulses.
That's good. That's exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, but my lawyer told me this. You have to have this come from the hand. You have to have it on film. You have to see it go through the air, and you have to have it on the same film hit you. That's what kind of proof she said that they needed.
You know what? I don't agree with that because we have so many things happen to it, and we have so much, even if you don't have that, we have so much circumstantial evidence. And I mean, if you can see equipment all around their property and, you know who it is, there's a lot of ways to catch them other than that.
I agree
And
with you, but
I have
that's
a
what she
ruling. I have a
said.
ruling where I've actually caught them. So I understand that maybe an attorney wouldn't want to take it on without that. But maybe you could get around that if you had an expert witness. So
That's why I wanted to take the audio spotlight into court and use it on the judge and on the prosecuting attorney, and
you,
no laughing matter, and the defending
no, it
part.
isn't. But I think it's funny when you say using it on the judge.
Yeah, and say, listen,
you
and put in there
guys,
screechy, yelling, screaming garbage and say, this is what I'm hit with all the time.
Exactly, and you keep that because we are going to court. Everybody's going to court, and so you've got that, and just keep. People get tired of things get stolen from them, and they get tired of doing it. But we just have to keep doing it because we're almost there, and we're all going to court. And once we get a few little ones, then we can go for the class action and really make some money. And we deserve every cent we get. They can't give me 13 years back. I'm 70. I'll be 83 in 13.
okay, I just wanted to check to see if Karen Stewart was in fact in the audience. She is due here at 9:30. Karen, are you here?
Hey, Frank. Hey, yeah, this is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
Hey, I'm just listening. Interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah, very interesting, always. Okay, would you like to take the floor?
Well, I kind of wanted to interact. I mean, I don't have anything
Yeah,
I
definitely.
can really report. There are things going on, but some of it I can't really talk about yet.
Okay, that's good. I'll just leave everybody unmuted, and hopefully we can have some adults answer.
I have a question for both of you. I've noticed that you, Frank, have no problem putting your perp's name and everything on that, but I'm just wondering if that there couldn't be a horrible backlash off of that. What do you think, Karen?
Anytime we identify them, there's that potential.
Yeah. So that's. I don't think mine would, since he's supposed to be dead. since he hopes his own death, but
Yeah.
still, you know.
But don't they know who we are anyway? I mean, they have all the information.
It's
Yeah.
not
No,
bad.
I think what she's talking about is like them claiming slander or libel.
Yeah.
Oh.
And my response would be that the new laws after 9/11 would classify them as domestic terrorists, and if they want to accuse me of anything, they can go through a polygraph, which, of course, in a regular court of law, you don't get to demand. But if you say this person is guilty of domestic terrorism, then I would push that and say if they're not, then let them take a polygraph, because they would
The problem
fail.
with that is that he's probably a sociopath. He's at least a malignant narcissist. I know that for sure. You know, and so there's a lot of these guys.
Some psychopaths can lie and get away with it on polygraphs. That's true. But the
that could hurt
usual
us more
neighbor
than help us.
probably would flunk it.
Yeah, that could hurt us more than help us, and that's the only reason. But I'll tell you what we could do. We could take our own polygraph test and take that to court. And even though it's not admissible, it's up to the judge whether it's admissible. So I think just the fact that we've shown that we're telling the truth can't hurt.
Right.
You guys better be
That would
careful.
be defense.
Right.
About what?
I used to bring up polygraph. The first time I did it was about a year ago, and I'd get thrown off the calls constant.
Oh.
And anytime I mention polygraph of myself to prove my innocence, that I'm not a perp or that I don't have anything going or anything like that, or I'd get thrown off the calls. Derek was the first one to do that.
Yeah, Derek really fucked up a lot too, in some respects.
Yeah.
So are you saying that it was Derek that, wait a second, now I'm caught. Are you saying that Derek kicked you off the call, or it's just the fact that you said polygraph?
Just for mentioning the idea of polygraph being used in our circles.
Right.
The TIs using polygraph effectively to expose the perps within our community. But the ones that say that they are, the ones that say they are, if I could, the ones that say they are TIs, and they're not TIs, they're perps. And then I came up with the idea a year ago and said, well, let's use polygraph at our meetups. Set up a table, get in line, and just
we could
2
get
or 3
a lot
questions.
cheaper if we did it that way too.
Yeah. Rent a machine or hire a technician for whatever his price is, his or her price.
We have to have
and then at our meetups, at our rallies that we attend in front of the United States Capitol or in front of the White House or wherever our tables are going to be set up at, and set up one little spot for the polygraph and line up. All the TIs get in line. And have you ever blah, 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 are you secretly working for blah, 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 you know, and prove yourself.
I'd like to have Karen speak if she could. I think the question was answered.
Hey, yeah, we've got one problem in that it's not a recognized science. You know, it can be wrong, you know, so that's why judges and people like that may or may not allow them. And polygraphs go off of whether you have, whether you're upset, you know. So that happened to me when they were trying to frame me. They screamed and yelled at me.
This isn't for the purpose of any court use. It has no use in court. It's for our benefit to know who the perps are inside our organization in a very small, confined area comparatively. It's just
Well,
to
there
find
is a
out the
reason
who
that
is and the
yeah,
who is not. That's all.
yeah.
No,
Well,
no, no. If you want to argue it, you're going to look like a perp if you want to argue the point. But that's okay. That's your prerogative.
how about if I argue the point? All right. One thing, if you get people lined up in front of a building, and then you're trying to take a polygraph and things are going on around you, you're going to be distracted. You may get nervous, and that'll make
Oh,
you
there you
talk.
go.
There's a reason
You're
that you have
sounding
a
more and more
polygraph
like it, like one.
Well,
in
what
a
she says
Oh,
is
room.
right.
don't call her a perv. Don't do that, please. That's not
Please.
torture.
If,
What she's saying is right. You have to have a control situation.
Right.
You can't
That's
do it
just
in line in front of a building.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we couldn't do it individually or maybe in a hotel room nearby or
Right.
something like
Right.
that. And the cheapest
Right.
one I found was $125, and that was a long time ago, so they're more than that. But we might be able to get it a lot cheaper if it was a bunch of us.
I took a polygraph for a job at a job interview, and they want you to sit very quietly for a time, and
Right.
then they will ask you baseline questions to figure out whether you're lying or not. And they'll do that
Right.
sometimes 40 minutes, and this time it was like a half an hour. But the polygraph, I would say, is very accurate when it's done properly.
Exactly.
I would agree.
Exactly.
Work
I've been
on
under
me.
2 polygraph examinations. One for murder.
You did one for murder?
Well, I was not guilty of the murder, but yes, they were questioning me because I came home from work one night and I found my buddy and his girlfriend dead after he
Oh,
committed
God.
suicide. He shot her and then he shot himself and stuff, and it was a bad situation. That was in 1992. But anyway, this is Captain White of the Sovereign Colonies Armed Forces, and I'm just sandbagging, and I'm listening to what you guys are saying. So just go ahead. I just want to sandbag for now.
I took a polygraph as a demonstration, and it didn't work because he told me to concentrate on the wall, and I did, and I got tunnel vision, and the next thing I know, he's ripping the leads off my arm, and he's asking me if I'm all right, and I said, yeah, I'm fine. Why? What's the matter? He said, nothing. You go take a seat. Evidently, I must have screwed up his machine.
Why were the beads a concern?
He had leads, they put the leads on your fingers
Oh, the
and
leads.
stuff.
I thought you said beads.
No, leads. He ripped them off my hand, and he was like, "You okay? You okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. What's the matter?" He wouldn't tell me. Evidently, I must have broke his machine with my concentration.
Yes, they do. They try to build a baseline. They tell you, okay, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I want you to lie each time. And then so you'll. So are you? I was 27 at the time, and he goes, "Are you 28?" And I say, "Yes." And so that shows up as a lie. And then he asks you a few other questions. Were you born on this date? And you tell a lie. Say, yeah, I was born on this date, or yes or no. It was always a yes or no question. And then he got to a much more difficult question. He got to the question where he asked me, he says, so in your entire lifetime, from the time that you were born until the time right now, have you ever threatened anybody in your life with an object in your hand? And so I'm just like, I'm thinking, my mind is racing, and I'm just thinking, oh, fuck, I don't know, man. There was a time in the Navy where I threatened to kill my superior petty officer with a bow and arrow. And he goes, were you holding the bow? And I says, no, I just told him that I was gonna put an arrow in his chest and I was gonna kill him. And he says, well, that doesn't count. And he goes, is there anything else? And I says, well, when I was 7 or 8 years old, the giant bully that lived across the street from me chased me home from school, and he was going to throw a rock at me. And so I went and I tore a cinder block off of a wall, and I held it over my head. And I go, does that count? And he goes, oh, yeah. oh, that definitely counts. And he started jotting some shit down, you know. So, I mean, that's just the way that their minds roll. And, but anyway, I got off with a clean bill as far as me telling the truth. And then the other time that I took a lie detector test was when I was younger. I was only 19, and I went to get a job for TGI Fridays. And they basically just wanted to find out if you were a liar or if you were a thief. You know, so this is also, have you ever smoked any weed? And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, man. I've had a couple of, you know. And then he's like, so have you ever done any coke? And I'm like, oh, I get a little bit more sketchy down the sky, maybe once, you know. And then, you know, so did you ever steal anything, even like a pen, you know, from a former boss? I'm like, no, I never stole. So. But anyway, I got the job, but that was a long time ago. But please, I don't want to get off onto my tangents. I want to hear what the rest of the community is doing about Shield, because I want to know about the technology that people are using to protect themselves, because I have a few ideas of my own.
Frank, can you give a short introduction as to who Karen is? I came on the call tonight specifically because I knew she was going to be on, and she's not getting a chance to say anything.
Karen is a NSA whistleblower.
People don't understand that when they interrupt a sentence, nobody hears the rest of it on these calls.
Am I getting through? Karen, that's my fault. Karen Melton Stewart is an NSA whistleblower. And sometime when she chooses, she will tell you part of her story, and then you will understand. But she is a very special guest. She has...
Thank you. Appreciate it. Chris, you want...
Okay. So
hey.
Yeah.
I can just very quickly say, you know, I ended up getting targeted at the National Security Agency because I went to the Inspector General and asked him to look into something that I thought was unethical and illegal. And instead of doing his job, he had me targeted. So NSA Security basically gang stalked me, which is the first time I had ever heard of it or knew. And what I say is the very interesting thing is they used all the techniques that we see the civilians doing. So absolutely the federal government is involved. And then they ended up firing me for no reason, so I sued them. And so after my lawyer tried to get a subpoena to identify somebody from NSA who actually had broken into my house, then they had fired me and then dropped the gang stalking and left me alone, because they achieved what they wanted to do, to punish me for asking the IG to do his job. And then a few years later, when my lawyer wanted to subpoena something, then they started getting new people, like civilians, to gang stalk me. So at that point, it was about 2015, early 2015, the gang stopped me for about almost a year, and then started in with the directed energy weapons at the end of 2015, and so I've been hit with them since late 2015 to this day. So I wanted to say very quickly, though, I found some new shielding. If you go to Lowe's and you get some polycarbonate, it helps with some of the weapons, but it's they're panels, you know, that are used for greenhouses. So they can be really like 6 feet long and 28 inches wide. So it's not like you can buy little tiny things and make something. So you're kind of stuck with something really huge, but they do have some effect. And there are smaller panels about 4 feet tall and about 26 inches wide that are plastic and polycarbonate, which they're not quite as effective, but they're still pretty effective. So that might be something to try to put over you or to each side of you. So they do have some effect. So that's brand new that I didn't know about, you know, a few months ago.
Have you been using them?
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
And who just spoke? What is your name?
This is Karen Stewart, or the other person.
You're breaking up. But anyway, my idea is for the people in the program tonight who were military to go to a surplus outlet that sells Army and all military surplus that has the little trailers that are like they use them. Some are as old as 8-9 years old, but the better part of them are only about 4 years old. And for the purpose of setting up a communications trailer with the communication equipment inside, and that trailer is made so it will protect a lot of different components inside those highly sensitive communications equipment, electronics inside that trailer. And they gut them, and the inside is practically untouched. And if there are little spots here and there where they drilled holes or whatever, they have ventilation, they have air conditioning, there's technicians inside while the equipment is being operated, and it'd be a perfect spot to sleep in. It's got an air conditioner in it and a heating unit, and they're ideal.
Where can you buy
in my
these?
opinion.
Wait a minute. Where
Army surplus.
How big are they?
And what are they called? What are they called?
Oh, I don't know the name of them. I've seen them though. There's a outlet. There's a couple of outlets here in town where I am.
Is it used as
and
a
it's a pull behind trailer.
Okay.
And as many as 5 or 6 technicians can work inside, and I found one for about $4,000, and that's not that much money. It's not that much money, and they have smaller ones.
What'd you do with it?
Well, I have another idea where you can get one of those.
How could the technician work inside? What will he be doing?
To be protected.
So
yeah, what did you do?
Are you asking me a question?
Yes. Sorry, hi. And I appreciate the idea. But when you say technicians could work inside of them, are you thinking that you could get the right people to come in and actually, help you out with this? Or, how are you going to get these people to, if I purchase this, I don't know who I would, I don't know. I guess I might know some people that could.
You have to
You mean like outside. A Faraday cage, almost.
Yeah, to test it out. It's not that big a deal to have it looked at and to test it for the frequencies that are bothering you. And but I got inside one, and I felt much better. I can say that I would easily go off to sleep without any problem. I did not go to sleep in there. I was looking at it.
He was at the store. We could get a dog in there too. That's what I like.
My grandson gave me a bulletproof vest, and I experimented with that, and I put it together and stuck my head in it, and it was like dead. I didn't hear any frequencies. I didn't hear anything. It went dead. And the only problem is it had armholes, but he took it. The vest did not belong to me. He took the vest and he sold it. He was having problems and needed the money. Otherwise, I'd have kept it. And I was thinking of getting another one.
Yeah,
so
that's a good idea.
The arm.
I just ordered one of those side panels that police put in inside. They tuck inside the
Hello?
Hello?
Hello.
Karen?
I just wanted to remind everyone that this is Q&A for Karen, and she wants it that way. So the questions are for Karen. We have till 2 or 3 a.m. after that to talk amongst ourselves. Okay? Thank you so much.
I just want to thank you.
From,
I just want to
let me
thank
read
you,
you guys
Karen, for
something.
everything that you do for us. I mean, it's extraordinary what you do, and you seem to be unstoppable. And I, for one, just want to thank you personally.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, I just try to figure out what more to do, what next to do, that type of thing, because this has got to stop. You know, it really does.
If you do it, that's the difference. Because let's face it, there's a lot of armchair warriors, and you're actually doing it, and so we just appreciate it. And also, it's a good example because people think, well, if she can do it, I can do it. You know, so it's really important.
Karen, I have
thank you so much.
From the chat. Have you heard from Bill or Kirk?
No, I really haven't. I will say that Bill's wife died. She had cancer, and so he has been extraordinarily occupied with trying to give her the best care possible and helping her. So I haven't.
I thought his wife died.
Pardon me? And I think Kirk's been having some problems too, so I'm not quite sure what they're up to. I'm so sorry.
Karen, I thought Bill's wife died. Is that true?
Yeah.
Said that, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I didn't. How's he doing?
You know, he has some health problems too, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But this has been an extraordinarily difficult year for him.
Yeah, they're both targeted. I don't know if they'd ever admit it, but I've long felt that Bill, and this has been a couple of years ago, if you look at some of his older videos, whenever he starts speaking, even at a forum, he'll start coughing. And it's that funny cough that you get when you're targeted.
Yeah, there's high-pitched sound that'll actually cause you respiratory arrest, and one of the first signs that you're being affected is coughing when you shouldn't be coughing. You don't have a cold,
Right.
You don't have pneumonia, you don't smoke, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen. Karen, this is Deb K in Minnesota.
Hey.
Hey, I saw on your page a while back, it was X-ray, like a X-ray thyroid cover, you know, that you can wear. It's the X-ray shield. So I got that. I got it, and I wear it on my head, and it blocks a lot of things.
Very good.
And it's only $38.
$38?
Yes, $38. I got it on Amazon.
And what was the brand? Do you have the brand?
Well, just look up X-ray thyroid shield, and I'm going to get another one because it only covers part of my head. I want to cover my whole head, and it blocks. It blocks all those frequencies.
Good, very good. Anytime I see something new, that I'll put it up to see if it'll help people. Because I mean, not all the weapons are exactly the same, but some of the stuff will help you with most of them, and they're quite worth getting.
Yes, thank you so much. You know, I look at your page when I can to see what you got, and you know, and then you sent me some things, and I still haven't gotten them all. But one thing, I mean, I I will get anything to help me, even when I'm driving.
Yeah, I understand. Listen, shoot me off an email and tell me what you didn't get, because lately I've been having trouble when I send off emails, people aren't getting them. So I tell people, you're not bugging me. I just want to know that you got everything I told you that I would send you, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, just tell me what's missing and let me try again.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the world of you.
Oh, I think the world of you guys. I mean, you guys are just absolutely wonderful people. You really are. You're supportive, you're kind, you're thoughtful, you know, and it's my pleasure to help you.
Great.
Hi, Karen.
Hey.
Karen, do you think it would be better for a targeted individual to have a basement apartment, like in the basement, where there's not a lot of windows and, you know?
Well, that's I've heard that helping, you know.
Yes.
It's possible. It's possible.
Even if there's, you know, your boxes, cable boxes, like right outside that door. You know,
Okay,
the two,
boxes?
well, if there's, you know, Comcast, whatever boxes.
Well,
Maybe right
you know,
outside.
there's when I was a kid in Florida, they didn't use the electricity of the house I was in, but when I got to back to Maryland, they had tampered with the electricity. So that won't be any different in a basement apartment than any other floor apartment. So they can tamper with electricity, do what is called reverse polarity, so that the electricity, whether it's on and whether you have like a lamp plugged into a socket or not, is still giving off dirty electricity, and they can mess with your refrigerator, microwave, washing machine, et cetera, and do reverse polarity, so that just because it's powered, it's giving off, you know, dirty electricity. So that's a wholly separate problem that won't be solved with where you are in an apartment. But if you're getting hit from outside the apartment, the basement would give you probably some kind of protection and make it more difficult for them.
Well, Karen,
okay, thank you.
Hi, Karen, this is Paula.
Hey, Paula.
How you doing?
Doing okay. I'm sorry I missed your episode at, 7:30 tonight?
No, the 29th.
29th. Okay, hey, go ahead and
Yeah.
announce it here, because I think people need to know.
Yeah, I sent it to Frank too. We're gonna do a broadcast on, oh Jesus, what's the lady's name again? Linda Casares, podcast. Me, Dr. Black, Letty, Julia, and I think that's it. Yeah, on Tuesday the 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do a broadcast. And there's a telephone number if you want to call in, or you can stream it. You can stream it live.
I think that's great.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, I just heard you talking to the lady. I live in the basement, and I do have windows, of course, but I turn my fuse box off, all the power except for the refrigerator. They still can use the dirty electricity even though I turn the fuse box off of all the power?
No, I don't think so. I think you're good there. And if you turn the refrigerator off overnight, that's still fine, because it'll keep the food cold overnight. You just, don't want to do it longer.
Right. Okay, good. Because, I have to turn my power off every night. I mean, I can't even sleep with the power on. I have a air mattress on top of my bed because they kept getting me with the coils in my mattress, but they're still seeming somehow to get me from, I guess, underground or something. I don't know how they still getting me with the air mattress on top of my bed.
You talking about devices?
No, they're talking about reverse. I cannot agree with that one. That's the only one I can't wrap my head around.
What's that?
No device.
The air mattress?
Reverse polarity.
Yes, can we talk about reverse polarity? I want to talk about Robert Stanson's helmet and about how we can make it into a giant doghouse so that we can crawl inside of it and be safe.
Okay, reverse polarity in the AC system in a normal house will result in everything going to ground.
Everything going to ground?
Yes, because the common or the lead is actually grounded. I've got some talk back here somewhere. I got to find it.
It's something, that's it's bad. It's affecting
I hear a
you.
lot of
Go ahead.
feedback.
Excuse me?
It sounds better now.
Okay, yeah, I think so.
It does. Hey, Frank. I appreciate your chiming in because I do not know anything about electricity. I'm repeating what a woman has told me who has been working on getting her cabin free from, the electricity and stuff like that, from the dirty electricity. So I'm getting an education along with everyone else. So I do appreciate it.
Okay, yeah. The lines that come in the house are actually two 220 lines. So you have 4, but it's split in the box. 220 on one side of the box and 220 on the other side of the box. And then there is the ground. And that goes from there usually to your water meter, and it's grounded. So if you reverse the polarity, all that hot stuff is going to be going right to ground, and it will actually cause a house fire.
It will cause what? I can't hear you.
A house fire.
Okay. Well, I'd like to have you guys talk. I may talk to this lady and see if she can talk to you, and then find out what you guys decide on this, because this is not an area of my knowledge, but she seems to have had some kind of luck protecting herself. So we need to weed out the good information from the misconceptions.
Yeah, I'm certified on 12, 24, 32, and 36 DC, and 110 and 220 AC.
Excellent.
That's on a yacht, so I don't have the credential to practice it or know what I want to.
But you know what you're doing. That's the important stuff.
Yeah, stuff.
Yes.
So it goes to ground. And what does that mean exactly?
Well, it will be like hooking the hot line right up to a stake driven in the ground, for lack of a...
gosh. Okay, so if our home is grounded, right, then we're okay. Is that what you're saying?
No, reverse polarity is actually switching from negative to positive and positive to negative, which will not work. Your refrigerator and any other appliances would fry immediately.
Would what immediately?
Fry, F-R-Y.
Oh, right, exactly.
Are you hearing me okay?
No, there's a lot of feedback coming back, a lot of static.
Yeah, blurred.
Only when I speak?
Frank.
It's almost everyone except for Karen Stewart.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Okay, just let me know.
Well, let me ask you. Maybe this lady has her terminology incorrect, but she's talking about the fact that they're doing something to, like, a refrigerator or a microwave or whatever, so that it is putting out dirty electricity whether you're using it or not. Yeah, but it's putting it out because it's plugged in, not because it's turned on. So she may not have the correct terminology. And certainly, again, I know nothing about electricity, so I am not even going to say I know what I'm talking about in this respect. I'm just repeating what she's been telling me.
Yeah, she could be talking just about a filthy ground.
And can I get in on this?
Certainly.
Okay, yeah, this is Mark. Yeah, here's where reverse polarity comes into play. And first and foremost, it's almost a ridiculous term because AC does not have polarity. But in your house, like you said, I'll say again what you already said. The neutral, which is the bigger blade of the plug, goes to your power box and it connects directly to ground. So if anything in there was backwards, it would just blow the snot out of fuses. You couldn't do it. Where reverse polarity comes into play, and they got these little plugs that will say you have reverse polarity, where if OSHA comes into your factory, they'll just have a heyday with their little toy plug. You can wire a plug backwards, and that would be called reverse polarity. Therefore, if you put your television or your radio in it, most modern day units will work just fine, then that could be reverse polarity, but it isn't likely that your house could be. And that's another concern. I wanted to say this for the longest time. People that are grounding themselves by sticking plugs in the wall, I always say, if you're going to mess with bare wires and put your body on them, always touch the back of your hand to them first. Because if you get tickled, it will flex your muscles and it'll pull you out of the circuit. Because if somebody got into your house and they moved one of these wires on the plug from one spot to another, I'm not going to be specific on purpose, a prong that should be safe won't be safe. And it would take 10 seconds to do that. That scares me about people hooking themselves up to their wall sockets. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, this needs to be really competently explored because I think something is being done inside people's houses, but I couldn't tell you exactly what. So that needs to be really delved into and explored.
You can buy those plugs to check your polarity.
Hi, I'd like to make a comment, please.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
I can.
Okay, no offense to anybody, but I'm going to tell you something. The common denominator here is metal, okay? That's why when you go near your refrigerator, your stove, you get shocked. As far as being on the basement floor, that doesn't work. I had a big house in Atlanta before I moved to California. I tried sleeping on the basement floor thinking somehow that would ground me. I still got hit. I later found out that they laid, when they're building homes, there's some kind of sheet of metal or some kind of metal grid, and they pour concrete on top of that. The common denominator here is metal. And I have had that corroborated with a metal toxicity study, which showed high levels of metal in my body. Okay? If you avoid metal, as I have done by moving from one apartment, which was basically made of glass and metal, I was so severely hit just a couple of months ago that when I go back now to that apartment to clean up, I'm surprised I survived. So now I'm in an apartment that's mostly made of wood. Of course, there is some metal behind the wall. I have systematically removed metal out of my life. I got rid of those mattresses that have that metal grid. Gone. I got rid of my sofa that was very expensive that I bought from Macy's. That was nothing but a metal grid with cushion and down feathers and everything on top. I couldn't even walk near that thing. I have replaced that with a sofa that I also bought at Macy's that is leather and that has a Pirelli grid on it for the cushion, whatever. So no more metal. And I have bought memory foam mattresses and custom made, really inexpensive box springs that are just made with the plywood and no metal. As I have done.
Okay, I appreciate your comment. I won't be long. I'm going to have to mute the room because we have a guest that has a very powerful leak and it's not showing up. So I'm going to unmute Karen and I'm going to unmute caller 81 who was just speaking, and feel free to speak.
Okay.
Alrighty, and
so
I
that was
appreciate
basically
the
it. You know, a lot of times. I'm sorry, Karen. I love you, Karen. By the way, you're awesome. I'm sorry.
You're sweet. I said you're sweet. Thank you, but I appreciate the information you're giving us.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, just start. If you can start to remove the metal from your environment little by little. Check your sofa. You may think there's no metal on your sofa, but there is. Check your
check your, your box springs on your bed. Check your mattress and try to eliminate it. Now, let me say something else. What also really works well for me at this point, because they are using, as bizarre as it sounds, some kind of metal osmosis. And they are able to actually transfer the metal that I get near into my body. Again, corroborated by lab results that Dr. Staninger ordered. Okay, positive high metals in my body. Now, I can't really feel that much with metal anymore. So let me just say one last thing that works really well. These WeatherTech car mats, you've probably seen the commercials on TV. If you have a Costco membership and you can go there, they sell them really cheaply. Like you can get a 4-pack and they're black, really good quality rubber mats. That works very well for me now.
Where?
WeatherTech car mats at Costco. They sell them. I tried a cheaper brand that I picked up at TJ Maxx. Those were just garbage. I took them back. WeatherTech. They make a superb quality rubber mat. They come in black. That works very well as a shielding, particularly if you have what I have, which is this metal sensitivity. But I think that is common among all of us. We just don't all know that yet. And that's all I needed to say tonight. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you so much.
Karen, I'm wondering if what you're talking about coming out of the circuits is, you gave the word and I'm brain dead, like the extra oozing current that comes through the circuits. What? I forgot the name of it. You threw it out.
Dirty electricity?
Yeah. There is something called Stetzer filters, but they're very expensive. Now, Dave Case, I got some from Dave Case, and he claims instead of having to put them in every circuit, all you have to do is put them in a plug. How do I put this? Let's say you have 5 circuits in the living room and they're all connected at your panel. And they're all connected to the same switch on your panel. All you have to do is put these filters that he makes in one of those circuits. So for my whole house, I had to get about 10. And I could feel a difference. Now, it's not stopping the targeting, but it does calm down the electricity in the house. I have an older house.
Karen,
very good.
Oh, that's right. You got Dave. Yep. Okay.
Have you tried those? Is that what you were talking about, the extra current coming through the house?
Well, it's very possible. Like I said, I'm talking to somebody who knows immensely more about electricity than I do. I'm totally uneducated in electricity, so I wanted to. There was an opportunity for me to bring this up so people could explore it, because when I was in Florida, I was being hit by directed energy weapons outside the home. When I got back to Maryland, they knew I was coming, so what they did was they came in and did something inside the house that hits me here. So I was talking to another targeted individual, and she had that experience and was telling me about all the things she was doing to correct the situation in her home, including turning off the fuse box. And she actually had to get rid of her refrigerator. She went to using a small one that you use in a dorm room because they can't, it's not as powerful as the regular big refrigerator. And so she's gotten immense relief, even though when she leaves the house, they try to do something the minute she's gone. So she's constantly fighting that battle. But she's winning probably 80% of the problem. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds different from what I'm talking about. I don't know how they do that. I've heard that.
Karen, may I ask you a question, Karen? My name is, I live in New York State, near Albany, and I live with someone who is not targeted, and he's very particular about things, and it's difficult for me to turn anything off. Yeah. So I'm actually thinking of moving, but he sort of knows about it, but yet he doesn't really want to believe it, and of course I don't either. But my eyes, they are, or the technology is really, the last few days it's been going at my eyes terribly.
Oh dear.
Any suggestion?
Hey, I have something. Let me go look. I have something that's great. Let me go look and I'll come back.
Okay, thanks.
Well, that sounds interesting. There are certain glasses. Less EMF sells a glass, a pair of glasses that is actually mesh. That is supposed to stop radio.
I use. They're good, but they don't work lately.
Okay. They don't. Well, it depends on the weapon, because some of these things work great for a certain type of weapon, and some of them work not at all for a different type of weapon. Sometimes there are things. Let's say goggles for going skiing that are highly reflective.
Mm-hmm.
Those might work depending on the type of weapon. And also maybe laser. There are laser glasses. Like if you're doing stuff with lasers, and you can buy a laser for $20 to $100, right?
Karen, I got those laser glasses, and I had all this pressure in my eyes. The minute I got them, I put them on, and all the pressure left my eyes.
That's wonderful.
Well, there we go.
That's good to hear.
So it sounds like you need 2 or 3 different things depending on what you're getting hit with.
Mhm.
Laser.
I'd like to
glasses,
add
the
these spa things that you can wear that have the oh man, my brain is not working. On the inside it has material, on the outside it has those little bubble beads, and you can put it in the freezer if you want, but you don't need to. That's an excellent. But what I wanted to give you was a product that will help your eyes feel better. It will not protect them. And it's called SIMILASAN, Irritated High Eye Relief. I do believe they've changed from irritated eye relief to red eye or something like that. And it takes the pain and the burning and everything away immediately.
And that sense of bright when you're looking at something,
it's made for computers, for radiation for computers.
Oh.
Wow.
It's cheap.
Well, there are glasses that are made to protect your eyes from using the computer as well, so those might help too.
Yeah.
Blue blockers, maybe?
Yeah.
That's what I have, blue light blockers. But I don't think that helps for the burn. I sleep with the mask.
I wear something too. I won't say on the line what it is, but Karen, do you think it's helpful to file police reports if there is anything that is sent in the mail and it has email addresses and it's meant to harass, such as sexual materials? Do you think that documenting that with the police is smart, and not mentioning any of the other things that we discuss that are not acceptable to them? You know what I mean?
Well, and I would document anything that seems like it's unusual. Like I get way too many life insurance advertisements in email that I have never signed up for. So it's a form of harassment. Telling me, oh, you need life insurance because we're going to, kill you. So, I get way too many. That's not coincidence. Then I unsubscribe from one, then get a new one, so.
Naked dolls with things wrapped around their waist, prepaid.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, certainly I'd take a picture and say, I got this on December 3rd, unsolicited. These are bizarre things to get in the mail. So this does show harassment, I think.
Yes, they certainly are. And another thing that happens when I go shopping, sometimes I notice when I'm about to check out at the register and use one of my, I have some health materials. All of a sudden, maybe for 2 or 3 minutes, it's embarrassing. I'm, going through my bag, and it's ridiculous, and then it will go away. But I think the objective is, I think my bank account is marked or is tracked, and I think not using
it's very possible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think so too.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Karen.
Hey,
yes,
Who
people.
was the lady?
Listen.
Who was the lady that said something about putting something into her eyes and it made her feel better? Should you say that name of that product again, please?
Oh, that was me. It's homeopathic. It's S as in Sam, I, L as in lamb, A, S as in Sam, A-N. And it's irritated eye relief, but I think they just changed it to red eye. And it's the same product.
It's homeopathic.
Yes, homeopathic. I mean, I just put it in my eyes consistently every night. But
Can you get
sometimes
it at Whole Foods, or do you need to go to a special homeopathic?
I order a lot of my products on Vitacost because it's cheaper. So I just call them up and get 3 months supply. I think, I've gotten it at just a regular health food store.
Yeah, I have some of their ear relief, and I use that at times. And
I didn't know they had an ear relief.
Yeah, they do. They do.
My ear gets clogged. Does it help for that?
A little bit, yes. It helps a little bit. And it has a cross with a little leaf or something.
I'm looking right at it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So am I.
And they're really cheap. I live with this. It's my eyes.
I have a question.
Eyes are all red, and I've got that pressure and that pain. I put these drops in there. I give it 3 minutes, and it's gone for the day.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, it's a great product.
Okay, I would like to interject to callers in particular. If you would like to speak, all you have to do is *6, and that will unmute you.
Hi, I have a question, Karen Stewart. I believe that, or I know that I'm under, in part, a lot of neural monitoring. And about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't know if this is true or not, but it feels to me like they are inserting, it's so weird to just say, I've never said this out loud before, that they are inserting dreams into my, when I'm dreaming. Like I know, like I almost can see in my dream that the dream is not real. It's the weirdest feeling, and I don't know if that's a program.
It is, because I've heard that many times.
Yes, I've heard of it before. Absolutely, it's possible. Because if they can insert voices, they can insert images.
They should.
Absolutely, I have the same thing.
Really? Mm-hmm. Even the color. Like one time it was sepia tone.
Sepia.
Yeah, sepia. And I in my dream I'm thinking, wow, it looks like I'm watching like a movie. And I woke up clear as day with the demarcation of that particular instant where I knew I saw it. I thought objectively, and then it just continued, and now I'm getting a little confused. So.
What kind of mask do you use,
they do.
Karen?
I have heard it. Pardon me?
What kind of mask do you use?
What kind of mask?
Didn't you say you go to sleep with a mask?
No, I didn't say that I go to sleep with a mask. I think that's Barbara who said that.
Oh, okay.
It was me. At TJ Maxx, they have these really cheap spa masks, and they have material on one side and then those beads on the other side. And you don't even have to put it in the freezer.
Gel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
And they're like $3.
Is actually shield.
All right.
Thanks. Yeah. What do they call those masks? How do I find them?
I get mine at TJ Maxx, and they're in the spa section. They have a little spa section at TJ Maxx.
Karen, I have a question. My name is Michelle. Do you follow this information about sealed indictments, and what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's going on. I think it absolutely is going on. I mean, some people don't know what to think about QAnon. In fact, I have something here I wanted to read when I get a chance that is from somebody affiliated with QAnon, which is kind of new information that's shocking. But my take is that after listening to a lot of YouTubes and talking to certain people, that QAnon is basically military intelligence that was watching the whole country, go to hell in a handbag, and they were on the verge of staging a coup to get rid of the criminals in the government, but they realized it would throw the country in a total panic. So what they did in 2015 or so was that they went to Donald Trump, because I had studied him, and I have seen some of the film for the last 20 years in different interviews where he, because he was a millionaire, very successful, he's been asked 100 times, would you ever consider running for president? And each and every time he was asked that, he said, I would prefer not, but unless we get somebody into the office who knows what he's doing and can turn the country around, I might be forced to. So this is not somebody who ever wanted to be president. So military intelligence took note of that. They took note of his special skills and experience, because this is a man who had to be successful among groups of criminals. I mean, mafia and all that kind of stuff in New York. So he basically swam with the sharks without becoming one and without being eaten by them. So they did go to Donald Trump and said, look, we got a proposition for you. We've got more or less a plan in place to follow, but we need your special knowledge, and you can be like value added. And we want to wipe these crooks out of government and take the country back, but we don't want to panic people, So it's basically what we're in is what is called a cold civil war, because everything is going on behind the scenes, and the average Joe hasn't the vaguest idea that anything other than political bickering is going on. But there have been deaths, there have been military skirmishes, so there's a lot going on. So I have a lot of hope in what is going on. I really do.
I do
and I
agree.
think once the story comes out, you guys are going to be blown away, and we're the ones who know something about it. Imagine your neighbor who hasn't the vaguest idea anything's going on.
Right. I do agree. And I just wondered, do you think he has any ability to slow down or stop the weather engineering they're doing against us?
I just saw something where he was given a tour of some of the facilities where these planes come from, and his attitude is that he wants it to stop. I think they gave him a song and dance he didn't buy. I have heard from some people that their chemtrails have gotten very low or stopped. So I don't know that it's taken place all over the country, and this would go to my opinion that a lot of these programs are hidden in other programs that sound like they're viable and that they're legitimate, and they're not. So I don't think there's a chemtrail program. I think that the various parts of the countries have these hidden in different other programs, so that as he cuts back on things, they will disappear. But it's not in one fell swoop.
I have seen a reduction in South Florida, which has been very positive. My other question was, is there going to be any way to turn back the rapid distribution of directed energy weapons that the Congress approved of in 2016?
That is going to have to be approached. My stance on that is that they need to make these mobile weapons forbidden technology and give people a certain amount of time to turn them in, or if they're found with them, it's the death penalty.
Yeah, that would be great. Karen, hi. I live near Albany, New York, and I don't know how many other people are going through this, but I have a degree in criminal justice. I actually belong to a neighborhood, I won't say what it is, but and I've been invited by the police to have things investigated. Yep. And then I start getting these sorry, it's not easy to talk. But anyway, I live near Albany, and how would I find out who was doing this to me? Do you have any idea?
Well, first and foremost, it's usually through the fusion centers.
But I've been,
You've got a fusion center in Albany, don't you?
I think there might be a Homeland Security, I know, in Latham, but I can check.
Well, what it is, the chain of command is Department of Homeland Security to the FBI. FBI is heavily involved in fusion centers, and FBI created fusion centers after 9/11 because the 9/11 Commission basically concluded that the reason that 9/11 happened was that the federal authorities and the local authorities weren't talking to each other and sharing information, which is baloney. But that's what they concluded, and they decided to create fusion centers all over the United States where feds and local authorities could fuse information. Okay. Well, what they've become is that the domestic terrorism unit basically it's those units all over the United States are creating the terrorism. Those are the people who go out to the neighborhoods and say, hey, Joe Smith is a pedophile, knowing that he's not, and giving them and instructing them on the mobile directed energy weapons and telling them if you aim this at Joe Smith's house 24/7, we'll get you a new roof, or we'll get you a new car, or we'll get you a new refrigerator, or something like that. So Targeted Justice has actually had 3 police whistleblowers come from fusion centers and affirm what I discovered in 2016 and was my opinion in 2016 after my own investigation, that the fusion centers were the center of the people directing gang stalkers. And 3 policemen have in the last couple of years come forward to tell Targeted Justice that absolutely yes, the fusion centers are the ones directing the gang stalkers.
Oh my gosh. Is it possible that my gang stalkers, if you will, they have to be criminals to be doing what they're doing? I have a clearance I have, my phone's going out, but I have a clearance from the police department, and I've worked with children and a number of things. I've even been a member of gang investigators. So, to do this to me is, I know you have a background.
Right. What I think we're looking at is a double set of books. If you would do a FOIA request, you'd come out clean, just like I came out clean. But then there's a second set of books where they fabricate all kinds of lies. And there was a lawyer named Bernhoft who was on Information Wars. He was being interviewed, and he said he had a lawsuit where he found out that there is a central fusion center where they can put in orders for false documents to attack people with. They say, oh, we want to attack. And in fact, he had a client who had a very good business that the IRS just wanted to take, but they didn't have any reason to take it because he wasn't a criminal. So they put out a contract on him. He said that his discovery, which is precedes a lawsuit, and it's basically where lawyers ask each other questions, and they supposedly are supposed to answer truthfully. But during the discovery process, he found out that the IRS had put a contract out on this guy, went to the major fusion center for the United States, and it's a secret one, so we don't quite know which one it is, but it may be one in Maryland or DC. And they said, hey, we want John Smith's business. We need you to fabricate lies about him so we can go into court and lie and take his business. So if this guy has proved it, which I do believe he has, then what they do is they say, hey, Mary Jones, we want to get her, but we don't have anything on her because she's a decent person, so we're going to have the fusion center fabricate lies, make up a false dossier, and then send it to the nearest fusion center to her. Then the fusion center is going to go to InfraGard, and they're going to tell them, we need you to harass her because she's a terrible person. and so these imbeciles do it. But also the police reach out to criminal gangs to do things that the InfraGard won't do because they're being played for fools. And if you tell somebody from InfraGard to go poison their dog, they may not. But if you tell a criminal, if you poison their dog, then we're going to give you a lighter sentence, or we're going to get your brother out of prison, then they will. So they are using criminals.
That sounds
Absolutely.
like what it might be, and I'm going to call back in, but someone in my family had, I don't want to get in trouble with this, but
instigated it?
Well, he was charged with selling Social Security numbers when he worked for the SSA to aliens, and he's one of my deceased father's children from another marriage. And it may not be that at all, but I do think it is really a criminal or a gang kind of thing. And
I mean, the criminals are involved in this up to their eyeballs. I mean, I can't, at this point in time, I can't tell the police from the criminals, and I'm sorry to say that, but the police are either told to butt out, which is grossly irresponsible, or they're participating.
Karen,
so this is
I
all
wanted
under the Infusion Center.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm going to be calling back in on another line, but thank you for that information.
Karen, is there any documents on that second set of records statement that you made?
Is there any what?
Are there any documents referring to the second set of records that you were talking about, or is it just this Bernhalf guy spoke on it?
Well, the Bernhalf, bernhalflaw.com, if you want to go to his site. So he basically has used this information in a lawsuit. So if we can get the name of the person he represented and see that it's, Bill Smith versus the IRS, then that would be available inside the lawsuit,
And can I ask you one other question? And if you say no, I won't even get into it. Have you heard of this guy, Raul, who's been speaking on some of the calls, who supposedly has insider information and asking us all to trust him, and that we're supposed to use this information to go after corporations and stuff? Have you heard about this guy?
I have not.
Okay.
I would be interested to hear more. So why don't we talk later?
He's
speaking
again on Ella's call on Thursday.
Okay.
He was on her call on Tuesday. He sounds legit, but the whole thing sounds so unbelievable.
Well,
and he's going to be on Ella's call again on Thursday.
Okay, I'll see if I can listen.
I would love your opinion.
Okay, I'll see if I can listen.
What did he
some
say?
of us are being.
Karen, I wanted to ask you something. You mentioned QAnon. I've been following QAnon, and ever since Snowden, the NSA has been a bad guy, and then QAnon comes along and says, in this situation, you're part of the good guys. So, given your experience, what is it? The compartmentalization, or what is your take on that?
Yeah, Q is a top security level, very high above top secret. Okay. The information that I've gotten, and if you look at some of the YouTubes from before Trump was president, you've got certain generals or admirals or people who have come out and they criticize on a YouTube saying, the government's not doing what they should. There are certain people in the government they name as being treasonous or traitorous, and there was a lot. In fact, the last president basically went to a lot of the military officers and said, if you don't pledge allegiance to me personally, then you're fired. And the last time I heard of that was Hitler. Okay, Hitler went to the German military and said, you're going to pledge allegiance to me above the country, and that's what unfortunately Obama did to many of the top ranking officers, and they some of them did it, but some of them said, I really can't do that, and then so he forced them to resign. So these are people at the very upper echelon of the military, and a lot of them military intelligence, who knew that something was not right, and they were seeing things going on, seeing lies told to the public, and seeing what they call treasonous activity and seditious activity, undermining the U.S. Constitution and the United States. And if you remember, the military was cut back severely such that if we were in a conflict, we really would be in trouble. So that was endangering the United States, and these military leaders said, listen, we're at the point where if we let this type of person, because there's a long list of people who have been doing very bad things, if we let these people, this more or less criminal cabal, continue inside government because they've infiltrated everything, then they're going to destroy the United States. And they said, so we have the choice of either basically, committing a coup, to remove these people and have the United States citizens not understand what we're doing, thinking we're the bad guys when we're not, or we can get a candidate to run and explain to him what the heck is going on, and have the President of the United States head our efforts to clean out the criminal infiltration of the government. So I believe that is what's going on. And they have had some people fired in, like the FBI is now advertising for employees because they've had so many people either fired or resign because they were tapped on the shoulder essentially and said, you can get out or you can be prosecuted. And you'll notice that there have been a lot of congressmen who have chosen to just quit their jobs and do something else. Well, they were tapped on the shoulder and said, we know what you've been up to, so you can leave, or we can have you arrested and in public and drag you out. So, and there are a lot of, if you look at the newspapers, you'll see a lot of CEOs also have been resigning and leaving their companies. Same reason. They were found to be criminals, and they were told that they were basically going to be prosecuted, and so they chose to step down rather than be arrested in their place of work and embarrass the business that they may have built up. So a lot is going on behind.
Join the FBI and help us.
Well, eventually, I will get enough decent people that they might actually do something, because this is their purview. They are the ones who should be helping us, but they are the ones behind harming us right now.
Right, but I just said you could join the FBI. They're looking for new people.
Yes, they are. If I weren't so old, I might join.
Don't you have to be an attorney to be part of the FBI?
Pardon me?
I think you have to be an attorney to be an agent, don't you?
Well, I don't know, but I just was teasing anyway.
No.
But let me read to you something about the fusion centers that you didn't know and I didn't know, and this comes from somebody who claims, and I'm not going to tell you I know this to be a fact, but this is from somebody who claims to be affiliated with QAnon. So let me go ahead and read this to you because this is rather shocking. Okay. The Department of Homeland Security was infiltrated by the Mexican mafia. Each agency inside of DHS has a powerful reach into the depths of the federal government databases. Oh, shoot, this thing's just turned off. Hold on, let me get it back. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. And there are 22 federal agencies inside DHS. The biggest agency is Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, with more than 60,000 employees. It is the nation's largest federal law enforcement agency, larger than the FBI, which employs 35,000. CBP is the agency where Marco Lopez became chief of staff under Napolitano for 2 years, starting in March 2009 until 2011. Head of Mexican drug cartel. Starting in 2011, Lopez left for more lucrative pastures. He was hired by Carlos Slim, a Mexican billionaire closely aligned with Carlos Salinas, the former president of Mexico, and a man said to be closely associated with him to even run the drug cartels of Mexico. Soon after beginning work with Slim, Lopez began working as an advisor to Carlos Salinas. Lopez was also appointed as advisor to Enrique Peña Nieto, the outgoing president of Mexico, who has been widely accused in the Mexican media throughout his tenure of being a puppet president for Salinas. So, to make this clear, the top man at the Customs and Border Patrol, a charter member of the Arizona Mafia, suddenly left and became a top advisor to Carlos Salinas and Carlos Slim. Okay, in regard to the Arizona Mafia, here are some of the Arizona Mafia members according to Arizona Capital. Noah Kroloff, a top staffer for Napolitano at the Arizona Governor's Office, who served as her Department of Homeland Security, along with Dennis Burke, one of Claire Bunfman's lawyers. He formed a security consulting firm, Global Security and Intelligence Strategies. Burke also served briefly at Homeland Security before becoming a U.S. Attorney for Arizona. Former U.S. Secret Service Director Mark Sullivan, who was retained by Rainier Bunfman to supervise Rainier's home arrest, an application which was denied even though Sullivan did appear in court for Rainier. Former U.S. Customs and Border Protection Deputy Director David Aguilar, lobbyist John Katesand, Chicago sports magnate Jerry Reinsdorf are all part of the Global Security and Intelligence Strategies firm. Dora Schriero, Napolitano's Arizona Department of Corrections Director, spent nearly 4 years heading the New York City Department of Corrections, a job she got after a brief stint at Homeland Security. And last, Tracy Waring, who headed the Arizona Department of Economic Security under Napolitano before becoming an advisor to her at Homeland Security, now runs the American Public Human Services Association, a large Washington-based nonprofit. So this has added yet another layer of complexity in that the Department of Homeland Security has been compromised to Mexican drug cartel people. So that is not good for us.
You know, one of the best ideas I thought for paying for this wall was Ted Cruz came up with the idea that we should have, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a drug lord that we had who had so much money in his till that it would pay for all the walls. There's controversy. And his thing was to confiscate the money, whatever one nation does, keep that money, pay for the wall. That way Mexico would have paid for it. That would have been something. Right. I'm just floored by Mexico, that rich country, and their big strength is drugs. It's just sickening. The second thing though, or follow up here. So my understanding is that these people are will be proven because of this blanket surveillance that the NSA did, which is I like, but at the same time, it will be something important in proving that these people have done wrong. Does that make any sense?
Well, yeah. Ironically, the NSA is not supposed to be listening to you or me because we're American citizens and we're on American soil. But it may be that they have a lot of evidence that will basically put away all these criminals. You know, the criminals who wanted to use NSA for bad purposes seem to be, in line to be hung by them. What they intended for evil against us is going to put them in Gitmo and other places forever.
Well,
that's one of the reasons John Huber, who is the U.S. attorney, the U.S. State's attorney in Utah, was chosen, is because he's right out there where the NSA facility is that collects all the phone calls, emails, et cetera, et cetera. So he and Jeff Sessions and other people, I think they had 470 investigators. So when they reach a certain point, they say, we need John Smith's email. So they just go and subpoena the NSA facility right there in Utah and get all the emails they need, and then they create an indictment, say, look at this. This is a crime where 15 people were involved, so we're going to create a sealed indictment for this, and then they keep on investigating. And of course, they're up to over 71,000 sealed indictments, and you can name, I think the limit is 94 people on each indictment, which is not to say each indictment has 94, but it could possibly. So that gives you an idea as to the immense number of arrests that they're looking to make. And another thing that I found very interesting with the General Mattis and General Kelly and Jeff Sessions all seeming to leave the administration as if, there's a sinking ship or something, and nobody can get along with Trump or something that the media may want you to believe. But all three of these people apparently left the administration to go be judges for the military tribunals that are being held secretly since January 2nd. So I tell people, look at what's being said in the media with, take it with a grain of salt, because we are in a war, and subterfuge is a type of war. You need that in war. So there's asymmetrical warfare going on along with subterfuge. So what you see on mainstream media is not necessarily the truth.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for Karen. Karen, what do you think about the rollout of 5G, and is Trump going to stop that?
This I don't know, but if he is being told, and I do believe he is, about all of this electronic harassment, I think that should be a concern. Everything that he does is not to my taste. I'm very much big on conserving, nature and animals and things like that, and he's made some decisions that I don't in the least agree with. But I think we're getting to where we need to be, and I think it's very clear that 5G is not good for us. And I do believe I read that the frequency that is used for 5G is the same as the weapons being used by the military. So that's pretty clear that it's not good for us. So I certainly am hoping that that will be stopped or altered in some way, once we get all of this, once we get a major part of this Cold War dealt with, because when you start chopping off the head of the snake still moves, but it slows down and it eventually stops. So I think with the government shutdown, a lot of the programs that are being funded that hide some of the things they shouldn't are being ferreted out. And once you have the government go into shutdown for more than 22 executive days or 30 days total, you can actually start to RIF people, and that's called a reduction in force. You can just basically say, look, we've done without you for a month. We decided we really don't need your job, so here's your pink slip. So that's also a good way to get rid of people who are part of the Cold War against cleaning out the government.
Why don't they go to the fusion centers? I mean, I'm thinking if the fusion center where I live, for instance, is really bad, maybe it would be a good idea to move if that's where it all starts and stems. I mean, are they looking at these centers?
Well, yes, because I just saw a document where they're talking about the fusion centers, and the Senate and congressmen were questioning certain things about fusion centers that they found highly suspicious. So they are starting to get the idea. And certainly any or all of us can write, you go to the White House site where it says contact the president and write an email. They have a form there where you can write, and I've done it several times, and I have written to them saying, shut down the fusion centers, because they are the origin of gang stalking, and they are seditious and treasonous anti-American traitors. So any of you can do that.
Well, that's good to
have
know.
A fusion center. I mean, I know you probably can't advertise when you drive past one. We are the fusion center. I don't know, but the other day I was driving and I came across two buildings that I have never came across in Pittsburgh, where I live before. And I drive around a lot. And one was
you can look them up on the internet.
And one was called Targeted Victims, right next door to, which I didn't know, I had to drive around the side to see it, which is the FBI. And I thought, I mean, I knew that the Targeted Victims building is brand new. And I thought about going in. I wonder what this is. I'm driving around.
So that was on the door? That was on the door?
Pardon?
That was on the door, targeted victims?
Oh yeah, it's on yeah, it's on a big, yep, on it. You're driving. This is probably a 15 to 20 story building, I would believe. And very nice one. Very nice new building. It says Center for Targeted Victims. Yeah.
I don't know what that is, so that would be very interesting. But you can look up fusion centers, and they'll give you a link that shows you the fusion centers in each and every state. And there are, if it's a small state, you're going to have one fusion center. And in fact, some states don't even have one. Like Wyoming, it doesn't have enough population to have one, so a nearby state takes over, for Wyoming. But there are states where there are at least two fusion centers because of the population and the vast expanse of the actual state. Like California may have 3, and Texas may have 3, but most of them have 1, and some of them have 2, and fewer have 3. But there is a main fusion center in every single state.
And so many people work there. I mean, is it like people from the CVP, like you said, or just people from the FBI, or are they just plainclothes diplomats?
Yeah, it's a fusion center, so they fuse information from several agencies, including federal and local. So I'm not sure how many work on average in each fusion center. I have not looked that up, but there are local police, sheriff's deputies, and other local authorities who have representation there, and there are federal entities that have representation there, to include FBI.
Karen, are the fusion centers paid for by the U.S. government? Do you know? It's Melinda.
Hi, I didn't quite understand.
Oh, do you know if the fusion centers are paid for by the U.S. government?
Yes, there's a lot of federal funding, but the interesting thing is they claim to be private entities, even though all the money is federal. What they do is they claim to be private entities so that you may not give them freedom of information requests. It's
What about, are they part of the layoff, part of the shutdown, do you know?
I don't know if they are. I would doubt it because they're going to be called essential personnel because of Homeland Security. So that is why on my page, on my Facebook page, I told people once the shutdown started, I said, if you find a difference in your targeting, please report it here because I'd like to track any type of developments. But so far, I've had 1 or 2 people say that they seem to think that their targeting has lessened, but not many at all. So that tells me they are deemed essential personnel, and they are getting paid, and they are being funded. So one way to find out where some of these programs are coming from is it's like you turn off the lights in your house one room at a time. So they're cutting off funding one room at a time to see, like what is continuing to happen, so they can find these programs. Again, you're not going to have a huge program in the United States government that says this is the targeted individuals program. You're not going to find that. You're going to find a lot of these programs hidden in programs that sound like they're legitimate, and so you have to shut them down one at a time to see what actually stops the criminal activity.
Were the people that were getting hit less, were they from specific states? Because in California, we seem to be getting it worse.
Yeah, you've got so many military and other entities in California. It really is a hotbed for targeted individuals, unfortunately. And in fact, some of the statistics that I saw on the sealed indictments showed that there were over 10,000 sealed indictments for California alone.
Yeah.
As opposed to 19 for Wyoming.
Hollywood.
I believe
Very
it.
possible,
I mean, we
yeah.
got all the tech people here too. But were the people that were getting hit less, were they from certain states? Do you remember, or were they?
No,
just
I'll have to
from
go
all
back
over?
and I'll have to go back and ask, because really only 2 people said that they thought they were getting hit less. So that is not any type of pattern. No.
Yeah,
You know, you said you didn't
Karen,
know
this
if
is
Tom
Melinda. Catherine, Kathleen, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
I've been running a thing called truthfinder.com, and I ran myself, and it says government watch, could possibly be under government watch list thing.
Oh.
Then I ran the man who I thought perhaps suggested me for this program, although I think I've been trafficked to other people, so it's not, he was in the beginning. And I know he got out of prison just last month for white collar crime, 12 years for costing the stock market $15 billion in one day. And I noticed that could possibly be on the government watch list. I also ran two tenants in my building here who I feel are perps, who've been here since I've been here and have been very suspicious. And two of them are on the government watch list. This is very, very interesting. I don't know what to say about that. I mean, the perps here in my building are the filth, the real low scum.
Karen, I've seen a difference. I've seen a difference here. Can you hear me? This is Alan.
Yes.
I went to my I went to my representative, and I showed him a flyer from Targeted Justice. Excuse me a minute.
Okay, Alan.
This is interesting. Something happened.
Alan.
He, in his usual way, humiliated way, started to say, I know it's the government. I said, no. I said, I told them it's entrenchment and crime, organized crime. He got the picture. He said, this started.
Allie, can you direct your air away from your mic? Thank you.
Yeah, you're I don't know how to do that. I have a speaker here. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes, much better.
And you can hear me? I'm sorry. Okay.
That's all right.
That's what happened. No, it happened last time too. They were laughing. They told me I was a breather. Anyway, I was very careful what I said to him. But he said, I know when this started. He sent me about 12 years ago to the head detective at the police station. He said, this happened then. And after I told him this, I have seen I had to really watch to say, oh, am I just thinking this is all stopping? These people and even neighbors and these people I don't know, all this stuff is stopping. And people who used to treat me so terribly are actually looking down and trying to be nice. But then what happened? The head detective must have gotten fired because they said he retired. There's no way this guy would have retired. He was too young. He was the cause of what happened. I've always kind of known that. When I started to get hit really bad, he's gone. Not only is he gone, and before these people were gone, I started to see a difference. But the doctor who 10 years ago, it took me a while to figure this out, covertly enabled, psychologically enabled me without knowing to be given all kinds of opioids and other kinds of things. I thought I was sick. I was grieving. Okay. But these heads are flying. These are big heads. This is like a doctor in who has the predominant population here. But they're gone quietly. There's not a lot of talk. And the one they said he retired. Well, he's too young to retire. Okay.
Right.
And there is a real difference. My problem as a TI is I've learned to be helpless. I'm still will not take myself to a doctor because I still do not know who those figures were who were intimidating the doctors and if they'll be there.
Fusion center.
How it's going to make a difference in our lives and how we can step forward is going to be the touchy part. But yes, things are really happening. They really are.
Let me ask you what state. I'm not going to ask you your city, but can I ask you what state you're
You
in?
can ask me city too. This is outside of Philadelphia.
Okay, good. All right, because I mean, I think, like I said, the programs are hidden in different legitimate programs. So we may have somebody in Nevada who sees not a difference, and then somebody in Pennsylvania says, "Oh my gosh, it's 30% reduced." So that's why we're trying to follow it and trying to see patterns. I think the shutdown, like I said, is subterfuge for Trump sending. And let me say, if you didn't know, Trump has not only started to bring people out of Syria and from these wars, to say we don't need all these wars, but he also took a lot of the military stationed in Europe and brought them home. In fact, they didn't get orders saying, okay, you're going home. They got orders saying you're being deployed, you're being redeployed in the United States. And of course, these people in the army and whatever are saying, wait a minute, we don't get deployed to the States because that is not constitutional, really, unless you have unless you have oh geez, I've lost the word. Like the military takeover. So they're bringing back military personnel and they're bringing back equipment so that the military can go and arrest some of these people because they can't trust the police to do it. So martial law is what I'm trying to say. So there is the potential for martial law, or there is the potential that we have basically gone into a type of limited temporary martial law, and that these people are going to some of the very worst offenders and arresting them first under cover of the government shutdown. Because, if you go in and yank out 20 congressmen, then the media is going to have a fit and they're going to tell people, Trump is turning into Hitler and we're all doomed and blah, 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 blah. So you want to do that
anyway.
so people don't. They will, but it'll be afterwards and it'll be baloney. But it'll keep people from turning cars over and setting them on fire, So
you're right about
quite
something else, though, Karen. They're absolutely. Is my breathing better, guys? They're the what they used to call the mafia has absolutely also been entrenched in this. The mafia has taken advantage of it, and I guess the fusion centers have used them and the police. This is what's happened. So this is going to be more difficult, but this gang thing that's going on, they have to watch it because the maze isn't going to be there to protect them anymore.
Right.
But they are right in this community, and I'm talking about one of the number 1-2 crime family that hangs out here, Philadelphia, New York, and New Jersey. I know was involved in it. I know. Go ahead.
Karen, hi, it's Belinda again. If I could finish, I was just going to say I found that 3 perps, the real trash, white trash, not white trash, I don't know what color they are, scum that, on the street perps are on the government watch list also, or could possibly be, as they word it. I'd like to know your feeling about that. And also, with the shutdown, some of the commentators have said that the alternate commentators have said it's possibly Trump can get rid of a lot of the SES people who, for those who don't know, are people who are appointed by previous administrations. They make more than the vice president makes. They don't do anything, have no job titles, but they put blocks into everything that they don't want passed. And there have been reports that some people in their specific departments who are still working are breathing a sigh of relief, saying, finally, we're getting some work done. So there's 2 sides to all the stories.
Well, yeah, the SES is a problem. It is very definitely a problem. It's just basically super grades that do what they want. They're not held accountable, and a lot of them are into absolute total criminality. So SES has got to be more or less done away with. So I'm hoping it basically dies under this shutdown, because, like I said, the shutdown seems to be cover for getting rid of obvious criminals. So we're crossing our fingers for that. And the interesting thing was I just found out that the GOP actually was trying to pass a bill last week that says, even though you federal people have been furloughed, this is a bill to pay you for that time. And the Democrats voted it down. So I don't understand that. If you care about the people, why would you vote down giving them money to cover their rent and their food? So that was very interesting to me. That seems to be a very, very awful move, and it would infuriate me. I mean, luckily, even though I'm getting retirement, it's not been shut off. But the people who are actively working, their active pay has been shut off. So why would you leave them in the lurch like that? Because very few people have 2 or 3 months or more of savings to get them by.
I also, let me just finish up, read that Speaker Pelosi was all set to get on a plane with 93 of her family members. And very young family members. And her father, I didn't know this, was the head mafia boss of Baltimore, Maryland for many years. Yeah. Major figure in that kind of thing. Family type of organization. I don't want to say the word.
Well, is this a plane that he stopped and told her she had to get on a commercial?
It was a U.S. Air Force C-31, a huge plane. They can put 1,000 people on that plane, and she was taking the whole world with her to leave the country for 11 days. And then there's a thing about it would be that if the president held his State of the Union and Pelosi was in Brussels, and the president and the vice president were knocked off, she would be president.
Yes, because she's third in line.
It's a conspiracy theory. Yes, it's a theory. It's a conspiracy theory.
Oh.
Well, it's very interesting because when Kennedy was assassinated, his whole cabinet was elsewhere, and there are some very similar, similarities in what transpired before Kennedy was knocked off and what just transpired, and it does look extremely suspicious because it's very possible that she was going to meet with some of the deep state people in Europe and wanted her family and essentially 6 or so of the other politicians on the plane who would be her cabinet if she were to become president.
This is just theory, everybody. Just, theory. Just a theory.
Sharon, did you say that you didn't know if Trump knew for sure that about us?
I'm pretty sure he does.
I know for a fact he does. I know for a fact he does. Here's why. You know who Ken Rhodes is, right? He used to be big. He used to be really involved with this and spent a lot of money on this. And he told me this himself. So he actually put a packet together and gave it to Trump Jr. and paid him and to give to his dad. So he does know. And somebody I heard someplace that he said once he would clean it up once he cleaned up the pedophiles. That's what I heard.
Right. That's what I heard too. Excuse me. That he was trying to save the children first.
Right.
Excuse me. So yes, I am very hopeful. It's just, and people say, why is it taking so long? And I tell them, logistics. I mean, look at the fact that so much has to be coordinated.
Exactly.
In fact, you have to figure out, where do we put these people? First of all, you couldn't send police to pick them up. There aren't enough police, and there wasn't enough room in the prisons, and you couldn't trust the police because they've been compromised. So Trump had to change, write certain executive orders. He had to change certain laws to make sure nobody got through a loophole. And he started to have to empty out some of the prisons of people who were there because they smoked marijuana. Oh, big deal. Get rid of these people. and make room for the gang stalkers and people like that. But they also had to build up Gitmo. You know, Gitmo probably right now I think can hold about 13,000 people, but it couldn't before. So they had to upgrade it and make it a very secure prison, you know, for that number of people. Plus, there have been reports that prison barges, one specifically from Rikers, were seen heading down the East Coast. Well, where the heck are they going? Are they full of people going to Gitmo? You know, so I mean, a lot had to be done to prepare to even go after these people. You know, including bringing back the military and their equipment to go round up these people and then have somewhere to put them. Plus, they had to train all kinds of military people to be on the, you know, tribunal, to be judges for the tribunal. And plus, they had to upgrade the manual for court-martial to include the fact that now they can have civilian judges to help them out with the sheer number of people who are going to be tried. And there had to be certain changes to be able to run out and not only pick up somebody who was a criminal military person, but to be able to declare somebody an enemy combatant who is a civilian and pick them up and try them by a military tribunal. So everything had to be put in place. And actually, if you look at the logistics of it, it's kind of amazing that he's even starting to get it done in his first term. Because this is monumental. This is huge because the trials will probably last years, but they're going to be 100% faster than any type of civilian trial. Plus, so many of the judges are criminal cabal judges. I mean, the things going on in our justice system are obscene because judges are getting bribed right and left. And I learned from Janet Phelan that one of the easy ways to bribe a judge is to come to him and say, hey, how would you like a loan of $500,000 after you judge things my way in this trial? So we'll just basically loan you $500,000. You don't have to pay a penny back, but we'll mark you paid the next year.
Do you think Trump will be reelected?
I do.
Oh, good.
Do you think he'll actually, and probably already knows, just how far it infiltrates, for instance, the Brain Initiative? I mean, I'm sure that's part of a program, part of a program, part of a program. But I mean,
you know what?
It has to be. Go ahead.
He's there to cut. He's there to cut the waste, and he's going to know that that's part of the criminal activity. So I think that's going to end up being cut.
Good.
It's all done, though. I mean, everybody's brain has already been mapped.
But it could stop. It would be nice.
It would be nice, but you know, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars worth of these obscene programs. I don't know how anybody could cut all of them. I think the science, well, it's fake science, actually. It's another kind of aggression, I think. Yeah. It's gone so far and has been so secretive that I don't know. And then the grants that universities are getting for their secret, you know, research and stuff, I don't know how all of it can be cut. I really don't.
Don't you think if you start at the top, the rest will fall?
Yeah, but you're talking about a Medusa with a lot of tentacles out there, you know. Where is the trunk of the tree, you know? Where is the trunk of the tree? I don't know what to say.
The problem here is actually the fraud in research. I think they have to tighten the controls with the research. I mean, this is the way people make their living. And besides the fraud with the input of research, there's then the fraud. There's so much of it that they lose control.
And then they sell it to other countries, which you know expands that tree more. So
it's just horrible.
Since we know that the U.S. is a war machine, we're not going to get rid of it.
And then we have AI, which is creeping in. And I know AI is responsible for example, my tinnitus, which only comes in the morning when I open my eyes. The thing starts immediately. So I know it's a machine. or something.
What about the contractors? I mean, it seems to me that would be the first place that they would go.
Oh, it'd be great if you can get rid of the contractors. That would be a change in this whole country. By the way, I got the name of an organization called the David Sid Organization. I heard it from a TI who has a testimony online, and he said David Sid is responsible for my gang stalking. Evidently, they hire gang stalkers and train them and everything. He's in Oklahoma.
Okay, we'll have to look into that because I know Lockheed Martin partakes in this as well, and they have
the biggest
franchise
on Amazon.
What?
She said she didn't know she was on.
Karen, you mentioned Sessions and a few others who may be waiting to do something good. I've had somebody I admire for a long time, Trey Gowdy, retired, and I just wondered, do you have any take on him?
You know, it's very interesting. I don't know whether his family was threatened or whether he was disgusted and decided to go do something else, or if we're going to see him reappear, you know, like Sessions and Kelly and Mattis in some other capacity. So that remains to be seen. I think he's a very staunch patriot, and he may be involved in the background. We're just going to have to see, because what his cover story is, or his story is that, you know, it was time to spend more time with his family and go back into private practice.
Yeah, no, he's odd. He has been on some interview shows, but his Benghazi hearing was wonderful, but nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Well, because the FBI wouldn't back it. They wouldn't do their jobs. They were covering.
I just want to skate back to Mr. Obama for a second. President Obama, when he created the BRAIN Initiative, he actually opened the door for a mob to run through asking for money, for grants. I mean, so now all of your colleges just about have a program, like MIT, like Georgia Tech. All of these colleges have grabbed up all this money. Now, MIT took $8.95 million, and that's just in Boston. So
that's just lunch food money, Frank.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what goes over the table. Who knows?
Yeah, but I think it was done by the time he announced it was all done. But you're right, it did allow a lot of money to come to the fore for research.
Well, this is one of the problems too that we face, and that the local people have no desire to do the right thing because they're making money hand over fist doing the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Karen? We're going to have a renaissance. We're going to have a renaissance of kids. Now, what's going to happen? This is how I see it. What's going to happen is this is going to come out, and it's so terrible that we're going to have a shift in consciousness. Everybody knows we're asleep at the wheel. Everybody is waking up. We're going to Women's March, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that character is going to matter. I think this is going to turn out to be a good thing.
I think so too, you know, because it'll shock the country into what it has become. And I've called it for, 2-3 years now, a predator-prey society, which is no civilization.
Especially if you're the prey.
Right. But still, this bodes very badly for a civilization that eats its own, you know?
We're not going to survive if we don't fix it. And I think everybody's getting that.
Karen, what would be their purpose if, for example, with me, if they had like a dossier on me with this supposed double life of being a terrorist? I mean, Okay. So, and
Okay,
what's
let's
their
put it
point?
this way: the fusion center gets paid and gets its staff according to how many terrorist threats are in its area. If they have 3 people who are suspicious, then they get a very little bit of money. If they have 10,000 people who are suspicious, they get a lot of money. So the more people they can lie about and throw onto the terrorist watch list, the more personnel, the more money, the bigger the budget, and the more prestige they get.
Exactly.
They also distract law enforcement and everybody else down the line. They're totally distracted, chasing innocent people,
Making money.
They're making money and they're chasing innocent people instead of seeing the crime which is going on in their very communities.
And they're hiring the people. Yeah. Well, it makes them look good, okay? Because also here's another factor. You're hiring not only the local teacher or CPA or fireman as InfraGard, which is their civilian mercenaries, but you're also hiring the local criminals, and you're telling those criminals, we have a job for you. We'll give you money, but you can only commit criminal activity against a select group of people. So that makes the police look like all of a sudden the crime rate drops because they're doing such a fabulous job, but the criminals are told you can only pick on targeted individuals. So those crimes aren't reported.
Was it you who said, I read somewhere, and this is Roseanne, by the way, I read somewhere that they were spending something like $1.3 million a year on each target.
That was from, and I've repeated it, so you may have heard it from me, but that was originally the estimation of Ken Peartree, who works as a federal employee, and his job is to plan projects. So in his expert opinion, he says that it takes probably $1.3 to $1.5 million a year to harass the average targeted individual. And I have suggested to Jack Christiana, who is in targeted justice, that be a baseline for what each and every one of us demands. We're going to, and he has not agreed, but it's just my suggestion to say, okay, I've been targeted 3 years, so the very least amount of money that we're going to start to demand for me would be 1.3 to 1.5 per year. And if you were targeted 10 years, then we're going to demand a baseline of 1.3 to 1.5 per year. So you would get 10 times that. And I've suggested that's the base of where we start, and then we go into punitive and actual damages and things like that, using Ken Peartree's investigation.
I can afford that.
Excuse me. I see that our country is being bankrupted in every which way. All wars, now the targeted individual program, if there are really 300,000 targeted individuals, which is one estimate I heard, and they're 1.3 million each to do what you're doing to them, a hell of a lot of money.
It is, but let me remind you that the president on December 20th or 21st, 2017, signed a executive order talking about human trafficking. And what he said was anybody who was suspected of or convicted of human trafficking would have all of their assets seized. And,
I remember that.
Basically, okay, but look at the fact that it's not just the government doing it. It's the contractors. It's General Dynamics. It's Raytheon. How many billions of dollars are they worth?
Right.
Lockheed Martin. So those companies would be taken over and sold, and all of their assets stripped, including the personal assets of the executives involved. I'm not worried about the money.
Not only that, he even went back and said, even if they've been reassigned, in the second, because he did a second executive order, and he said even if those assets have been reassigned, like to protect themselves, that we could still get them.
Yep. And we can go overseas. One of the things, you know, when Trump became president, what did he do? He traveled all over the world. He went to China. He went to Russia. He went to Europe. Okay, some of that, I speculate, was that he was going with his, you know, staff to tell the heads of government, look, here's the problem. We're going to have people fleeing to your country, or we're going to have people in your country involved. So we are telling you right now, we reserve the right to come to your country and extract them, bring them back to the United States, and try them for treason and human, you know, like crimes against humanity, et cetera, and they worked out deals.
Okay. Do you think that they would purposely allowing this program to continue so that they can catch these people? Because another thing I read, there are very obvious, when you look at laws governing human experimentation, they're very clear, and they say there needs to be informed consent. And then there are exceptions. And the exceptions are crazy. They're ridiculous. They say, unless someone wants to do something else. You know, it's like basically the exceptions are open door to, well, you can break this pretty easily. And I forget the exact wording of the exceptions. But somebody was making the point that Trump could release an executive order changing those exceptions and saying, no, you know, we need informed consent, period. No exceptions. Because right now it's a joke.
Yeah. Well, last 3 years, like I said, he and his people have been busy retooling the laws and making executive orders where they were needed. And they made changes to the manual for courts martial that took effect January 1st. The military tribunal started January 2nd. So I think they're pretty aware that they're going to have to be changing and revising laws as they go. So I do think this will be put an end to. And a lot of people have speculated that Trump's youngest son, Barron, actually may have autism. And Trump is no friend to the pharmaceuticals, and he has taken some action against people in the CDC. So he's well aware that vaccines and things like that are not what they are touted to be. They are extremely harmful. So those people he's going to be going after too. He's already started. So I think this BRAIN initiative, I think that's going to be dismantled. And I think certain laws are going to be put into place or revised. But again, the lawmakers are the congressmen, and probably a third of the Congress is involved in criminal activity. So you can't trust people who are criminals to pass the laws. What you have to do is you have to get them out of Congress, hold new elections, because the last ones were so tainted with criminal activity, with false voting. So don't be surprised if new elections are held to redo the midterms. After a lot of these people have been arrested, and he'll have to publicly, at a certain point in time, with all the people who are being arrested and prosecuted, the administration is going to have to come out with a comprehensive story about what the heck has been going on, what they were doing about it, and the justification and the proof of what they're claiming. So at that point in time, they can also say, look,
Yeah, you said that there would be people that would be removed, and we all know that pretty much in very large numbers, and that our government will have. I heard this today online that possibly as high as 75-80% of the Democrats will be rounded up and prosecuted and removed and sent off to FEMA camps and Gitmo and around. But in the event that all that takes place, what and who would be, you just were touching on it, but very briefly, lightly, saying who it might be that would fill in for those positions. And that's not an easy thing to replace, I wouldn't think. And they couldn't possibly hold elections. It'd take forever.
No, what you've got is the Trump administration let the midterms take place as they always have. But what they did was they put people out to watch and scrutinize what was going on, and they caught a lot of voter fraud. So essentially, if investigations show that the people elected by voter fraud knew that they were being elected by voter fraud, then those people are out, and they would have to hold elections again and redo special elections to replace these people. And they have the power to do that because
it's not by the chain of command, the next person in line who is knowledgeable about that governmental, the maneuvers and the rigors of taking up that office. The next guy in line, it's not done that way. Am I right?
Well, they would have to have somebody temporarily hold that position until elections could be arranged. But if they say that this person was elected knowing that he or she was getting the election rigged, then they would criminally remove them and say this election was a fraud and we have to redo it. So that's a possibility.
Uh-huh. There's so much to consider.
There is. The whole thing is horrifically complicated. And like I said, people have said, well, why isn't he doing something? He's already been in there almost 3 years. And I say because of logistics. Because, it's easy if somebody has a brain tumor that's all encased in one place. You go in, you remove the tumor, the person heals. But there's a certain type of cancer that invades the cell. And it's all, and I would call it infiltrated into the good cells. And that brain tumor is a lot harder to deal with because it's all mixed in with the good cells. So you do not treat them the same. You have to go about it differently. And that's what we have, is we have a criminal cabal more or less infiltrated into so very much of our government that we were on the verge of collapsing into a state of being ruled by mafia, more or less.
Oh yeah.
So it's a very delicate situation, shall we say?
But
that's interesting to know that Nancy Pelosi comes from a mob syndicated family. Yeah.
Yes. Well, let me put it to you this way. Years ago, they couldn't do much about the mafia until they developed the RICO laws and then sent away some major people for tax evasion. They couldn't get them for murder. They couldn't get them for robbery because they were too slick, but they got them eventually for tax evasion. So I would propose the possibility that the people who were mafia and had all this money from all the decades of criminal activity sent their children to the absolute best Ivy League schools and then had them get government jobs so that they could turn the government into something that helped them and not be subject to arrest. Think about that.
If the government shutdown was, they're not paying the FBI, and wouldn't that go down to the gang stalkers too? They're probably not getting paid right now.
It depends on the pot of money. You have to realize that the deep state stole trillions of dollars from the American people. Okay, 9/11 was part of the heist, and then the supposed airplane, which was more likely a missile that hit the Pentagon during 9/11, that hit the section of the Pentagon that was actually looking for missing money. So it destroyed all of the paperwork so that it would be much harder to find the missing billions, if not trillions, from the Pentagon. So, a tremendous heist has taken place and taken American tax dollars. And as they arrest these people and take their assets, some of this money will start to come back to the United States. But there's a huge pot of money that was stolen from us and is sitting
And
out
you think
there.
they
And
use
so,
that money to pay these people currently then? That's how they keep going right now?
well, it's very possible that they're tapping into it if some of their funding is disappearing because of the shutdown. So they've got multiple ways to make money on the gang stalking. You know, they're federally funded. If the Fusion Center says there are 10,000 terrorists and that Fusion Center gets more than a Fusion Center says we've got 3 suspicious people, right? So you got federal money that is actually enabling them to sell contracts on these people. And again, this is speculation, but it looks like military industrial complex weapons are being used, and they're likely paying Fusion Center and Department of Homeland Security people under the table to be able to use these weapons on us and then go back to their stockholders and say, oh, we tested this out on 1 million biospecimens, and these were the results. You're not telling them that, no, they're not biospecimens. They're non-consensual human beings who don't want to be tested on. But so these people make money under the table from the military-industrial complex, and then if some of the research is right, then if and when they kill us, then they get life insurance, trust funds, and joint properties that go to them as well, and everybody makes money. And I've speculated there may be even a kill bonus. You know, let's say you take out life insurance on somebody, you go to Nationwide and take out as many life insurance policies there as legally allowed, you know, pretending to be the person's aunt, mother, uncle, employer, you know, whatever. And so you max it out at Nationwide, and then you get other people to go and claim to be the same thing and take out insurance on that person with Liberty Mutual. And so you just hit the rounds, and as soon as you max out that person, then you may or may not have any reason to keep them alive. You may want that kill bonus.
How do they get trust funds?
Can I ask a question on what you just said?
Can I just ask, how do they get to the trust funds?
I was talking to Midge, and she said that's a good way to avoid probate. So
oh yeah, but I mean, how do they get trust funds from somebody who has trust funds?
I'm not following.
They don't.
Well, if you have, you know, your money in a trust, okay, all your assets.
No, there is.
Oh, I thought you meant they can get people's trust funds. Okay.
No, these are trust funds you know nothing about.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Okay.
You scared me. Thank you.
No, that's all right. I mean, this is from Midge Mathis and her and some of the people who have been investigating this. So this is secondhand information. I'm not someone who investigates the trust funds and things like that, because I am not a business person. I'm not a landowner, and this is not my background. But Midge was explaining this to me. And of course, if you're on the terrorist watch list, they have your birth date, they have your social security number, they have everything about you, and they're very well able to impersonate relatives or an employer of yours and get these policies taken out on you illegally and fraudulently.
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. Thank you.
The anonymous group is on the side of the targeted individuals. Has anybody thought about gathering together and hiring some top coders, hackers? They'd be able to see who your main person is and who's following you and all this kind of stuff, because it's all done with cell phones and everything else.
Well, I think some of the private investigators who are savvy enough to do it are beyond our price range, and nobody has gathered together a group to pool the money to have it done. So, you know, that's a
wouldn't
good
that
suggestion.
be one of
that's
our best options? The anonymous group has posted some stuff on it, but wouldn't that be one of the first things that everybody should try to do? Because that would lead you to everybody, their phones, their names, everything.
I tried to do that once, and I think that my my ex-husband, I have to say, I think they had fingers in most of the private investigators in this area where I live. I was actually told that by one of the private investigators, but this was back about 9 years ago. I tried another one that I talked to in another city, but yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great, but who to really trust? And it would
Right,
cost money
because
for sure.
I've done that.
yeah,
As far as the private investigators are concerned, they have to wait until things die down too, because they're either going to be targeted or they're going to get an offer they can't refuse. That's happening. They need a new
it
awakening
is.
also.
Mhm.
It's happened to
It
me
is.
I
both
had hired a
ways.
private investigator, for like $3,000, and he didn't do anything, first of all. But, I mean, even just some hackers, coders, I mean, they could hack into this. They could find stuff out right away. I just think that would be one of the ideas that some of the groups would come up with, because it's not going to cost that much money, but there you go. You're going to know exactly who got you in the program and who your perps are.
And I bet a lot of the targeted people are those very investigators. This is kind of like a catch-22 thing. It,
Yeah, I hired a detective to do limited work because I only had very limited money, and he got targeted.
yeah. If you read the papers, there's a really good um, site about ritual abuse. And this is just coincides. It's just very, very parallel. And one of the largest stories in this site is um, about lawyers or psychiatrists trying to help abused people, and what they do to those people who try to help someone. They'll kill their families. They'll attack their secretaries. It's what they've modeled this whole program after.
Yeah.
If that makes sense to you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean I've heard that from multiple people. Somebody who has been helped gets threatened or gets a pet killed, or a cousin or a wife or whatever in a terrible induced car accident. So they get the message to not help and they back off. So it is complex. You have to have the government at least partially on your side to try to stand with you, or you're out of luck. So like I say, some people want to sue right now and, go it alone. I said, well, that's fine, but you may want to engage a lawyer and tell him what is going on, but he may not have very much success until the government finally rounds up these people, or enough of them that they come out and make an announcement. This is what's been going on. And
This
then
is
your lawyer has
exactly
proof
what's
backed by
yeah.
the government that this is going on and is not just some kind of delusional fairy tale. So if people want to go ahead, like there is a targeted justice, and they're trying to put together a class action. But if people want to go it alone, I would get the lawyer familiar with what's going on, but I wouldn't file suit until the government backs what you're saying.
And even then, people are going to be hit. I mean, these criminals that look like CEOs or whatever of companies, they're not going to just fold over. They know that they're going to be be fingered. They're going to, whatever happens, they're going to try and protect themselves. They're just not going to lie down and go away.
Well, some of them have resigned from the companies that they started or they were heading, because they were tapped and said, look, we know what you're into, and you're going to be arrested. And they've stepped down from the company. So some of them are
That's awesome.
quite aware that there's nowhere to run, because they will be picked up, whether they run to Singapore or Antarctica. They're going to be picked up, But there are people who are going to fight back and who think, oh, surely we're so powerful that we'll win. Well, I don't think so. And I've been told by, again, the same person who claims QAnon affiliation, that there have been skirmishes where people have been killed. between the Trump administration and the deep state. So things are going on that are not being covered in mainstream media.
Yeah,
there was a
it's
reported
a war, and
earthquake.
it's just not over like boom, it's done and you're safe.
Yeah.
Right. Well, because it's behind the scenes, there are ways that they have to approach it that are very subtle. That if it were World War II, they just roll in and bomb everything. Well, they can't do that because you're talking about population centers, Chicago, Poughkeepsie, Miami, Waco. You just can't have an overt war in the middle of your country.
Hopefully not.
No, and there's some things. Look at in the Soviet Union. They used to watch the TV and say, "What are they not telling us?" Or they used to try to read between the lines because they knew that they were being lied to. Well, the same is going on here. So if you see something going on and it's covered one way, ask yourself, what is it they're not saying, or what is it they're trying to cover up by saying, "Hey, look over here," and not over there. So it becomes challenging to put this type of thing together. But also, I tell people go to YouTube and start looking at people that seem to know what's going on, and then comparing, what other people are saying as well, and then try to read between the lines or try to figure out if somebody really does have inside information and if what they're reporting is coming about. And then those are the people you want to start listening to.
Yeah, me.
I have a question.
Okay.
Back in 2017, Trump signed something that had to do something with tariffs, and it was supposed to have eliminated Agenda 21. But everything I keep hearing now is that Agenda 21 is still rolling out.
Yeah, I'm not really understanding you. The thing that stands out in my mind that he signed the executive order in late December 2017 had to do with human trafficking, and it said that if you are suspected of being a human trafficker, your assets would be seized, and if you were convicted, then they would be frozen, and if you were convicted, those assets would be seized. So that actually includes us, because human trafficking is making money off of another human being.
Okay, but the Agenda 21, you don't know anything about it?
Well, Agenda 21 is from the UN, and they want to depopulate the world down to an alarmingly small amount of people. So, yes, I've heard of that, and that is just an insane program.
I have a question. Is that just to
we
incite?
are that's intertwined in the targeting of us.
Yes, I believe it is. It's a way to murder people,
and learn how to control those that are left.
Right.
Karen and Frank, may I ask a question? Is the so-called Agenda 21, is that something where if you find it and read it and believe it, then you are scared, and that's part of what 9/11 was about? It was instilling fear in people. How true is
9/11 was to 9/11 was to trick people into giving up their freedoms for protection.
Mm-hmm.
And to usher in the police state.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but isn't part of how it is successful is to create fear and anxiety and confusion, as well as the economic wool that was.
That's what 9/11 was. It was to scare people into giving up their rights and their, for so-called protection, and to usher in the police state. It's to have people beg the government to take away their freedoms and their rights to protect them.
Adolf Hitler, after blowing up his chancellery, formed a group called Homeland Security.
Right. Now you're starting to connect the dots.
I think I read that there's a bill been proposed to separate us from the United Nations.
Well, I mean, the
Now,
United
Frank,
Nations is not
remember, Homeland Security
good
is
for us.
CIA. They staffed it full of CIA when it first opened. Okay, and CIA came to America through paperclip, former Nazis, and it's Homeland Security who hired ex-Stasi Marco Wolf in 2005.
Well, actually, Project Paperclip was bringing in Nazi scientists. And the reason it was called paper is because their file was put on the desk and a new fake file was laid over it, and they were paperclipped together. That's where the name came from.
Well, actually,
the Department
they
of
did
Homeland
more
Security
than that because
was
they observed one of the U.S. security offices and became the CIA. So it wasn't just scientists.
It was just called something else. Yes.
Okay, my source is documented. Is yours?
Huh?
My source is documented. Is yours?
Yeah. Actually, I'll go find a documentary for you to look at. So I'll be back.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, the Department of Homeland Security also it did have consultations, or they did have experts. Marcus Wolf from the East German Stasi was a consultant, and then Yevgeny Primakov from the KGB was a consultant on how to organize and run the Department of Homeland Security. And of course, the East German Stasi and the KGB had nothing to do with protecting their homelands. It had to do with oppressing their own people. So that was the basis upon which the Department of Homeland Security was founded. It was never intended to protect us.
That's right. What's your name?
Karen Stewart.
Karen Stewart. You are dead on, Miss Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of came into the call late, so I, didn't know what everything was going on. But
I just wonder if they can deal with the technology. Everything's digital now, which means everything can be hacked. Everything.
Yeah.
And I have noticed that I have gone into my sheriff's department to get copies of police reports, and some are missing. There's also fabrications. The woman said, "Oh, it looks like you called us 40 times." And I said, "No, I never called you 40 times. Can I see where it says that? Would you give me copies of all that?" So I got as much documentation as I could, because I was truly amazed that this whole story had been fabricated about me at the sheriff's department. Yeah. And then I went into my medical records and found the same thing, that they had actually had my mother down as depressive. My mother was the most wonderful, happy person in the whole world. They had her down with depression background. So they were painting a picture that I came from a mentally ill parent.
Yeah.
So, I started to realize that everything is computerized now. And those that can hack all of these files, everything, all of this information, can have, they have a great deal of power. And I even wondered if they even need people to turn us in, or, as suspected terrorists or whatever, or do they just fabricate the file in the appropriate database, so that all of a sudden all the police in our community are getting notification that we could be a problem, and that this was basically a data entry, which somebody did. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I mean, do they even use
yeah.
people to?
I know. I've read that there's supposedly a protocol where you have to be accused by 2 to 3 people of something. But
Okay.
if you look back, Obama actually in 2013 signed, I think it was an executive order that said that the amount of evidence that you needed to accuse somebody was dropped below probable cause, meaning basically a wink and a nod. You know, you can go with a buddy to the fusion center, accuse somebody of something, and have little to no proof, and that's enough to put you on the list. So that was a horrific change. At least they pretended to have probable cause, but at the point where Obama signed that executive order, then you needed nothing to put somebody on the watch list.
Right.
Well, not to reiterate, but wouldn't it be great if someone was starting to try to find someone who'd be interested, who could be a hacker? Because I've heard so many calls where people are spending so much time with cameras and pictures and all this kind of stuff, and a good hacker would be able to just find everything. So
well, I have been in touch with somebody who is. I've been in touch with somebody who is in Anonymous, and she is spreading the word as to what is going on with us. So it may be very possible that they're looking into it in greater and greater number. Of course, if you're privileged enough to have a contact like that, you don't want to abuse it. But she's definitely interested in finding out what our story is, what's going on, so that she can spread it to the members of Anonymous. Well, I would tell you, too, that Anonymous is kind of ragtag. It's not like they're going to all be 100% angels. Some of them are good people. Some of them are mostly good people. And some of them aren't so good people. But they can't really control. What they're looking for are people with the skills. So this has
maybe
gotten out into
even
Anonymous.
if it's someone that's not an Anonymous, but just something that, whoever, some of the people leading some of these groups could maybe talk about, because that would just, someone could go in and they would know everything. I mean, it's all computerized, all on the phone. That would be one of the things to bring to court. I mean, it would just, that's it,
Hey, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
How's it going?
Yes. Hey.
This is Kevin from way back when.
I can't understand you. I'm sorry. This is who?
Kevin?
Kevin? Okay.
Kevin Gold, Kevin for you all.
Okay.
Hi, how have you been doing? I haven't talked to you in such a long time.
Okay, well, I'm still here, so
Yeah,
that's about all I can say.
That's what we're all doing.
Right, exactly.
Is Frank there? I wanted to ask him, does he want me to open up the after call? It's midnight Eastern time. We had sort of an agreement, and I just want to make sure, unless he wants to keep going or how he wants to do that.
Well,
and I'm going to have to go to sleep pretty soon.
Yeah. I was thinking that. Yeah, I wanted to segue in a graceful way, but I wasn't sure how you wanted to do it.
Okay. You can open up like in, I don't know, whenever Karen's off, I will.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, that'd be fine. How do you feel, Karen?
I'm getting tired. Yeah. So it's pretty close to time for me to go. But I've enjoyed you guys, and
Karen, this
thank you
has
for the
been
question.
so
Thank you for the education.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely my pleasure.
Very
nice
really
to talk to you guys.
informative tonight.
Yeah, this Mexican mafia thing took me by surprise, but I thought it was very important to mention.
Hi, Frank.
But thank you guys
Before
for
you
the
go?
education too.
Yeah,
You're
thank you
welcome.
for everything you're doing.
Karen, you're wonderful.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see you again, and good luck in all that you do.
Well, thank you, and thank you for running this, because this is a very important service. It really is, and the exchange of information is wonderful. And
Yeah.
we will get, at some point in time, I'm sure somebody will step forward and say the anonymous group has been finding all this evidence, because we've been feeding them information too. So I think everything that we can try, we're trying. But of course, when people have new ideas, it's always great to air them and see, if we've touched on them, maybe we need to do more about them. So thank you guys very much for the information.
Put me up to speed, Karen, would you please? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, guys.
Have a good night.
Night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Night.
Night.
Okay, so let me just say really quickly, I'm going to do an after call after Frank's at 712-775-7031 on free conference call. The access code is 500161#. And we usually, have kind of a free-flowing conversation of spiritual topics or creative topics, that kind of thing. So I hope to see you all over there. Thank you, Frank.
Just posted it in the chat, too.
Okay, good.
That means I'll get some sleep tonight.
Yeah, you should. I mean, yeah, you do a lot of calls and a lot of hours, and I'm happy to relieve you of some of that burden,
Friday night at 6 p.m., we have the V2K call, and then the regular call at 9, Janet Phelan will be with us.
Oh, great. That's great.
All right. Well, I've posted Sue's information. Does everyone have it that wants to go over?
Perhaps you could repeat it once more. I'm not on my computer tonight.
For the callers, okay. For the callers, it's 712-775-7031. And the code is 500161#. And I'm not sure why the chat isn't working on my system there, but we do have a pretty good conversation anyway. So I try to open the chat, but for some reason it isn't working lately. All right, that just thought to tell you guys. All right, I'll see you over there. Thanks, Frank. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Have a great night, Frank. I've got to go. Thanks.
All right. Take care, Al.
Okay, thanks. Right.
All right.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Frank.
Folks, and we'll see you Friday. Those of you who want the V2K call, email me, and in the subject line, put V2K. Those of you who want the newsletter, put in the subject line, just newsletter. And you'll. Okay. Good night. God bless. And God bless TIs all over the world. Thank you so much.
Good night, Frank.
Good night.